Streaming. How you guys doing today? Oh my goodness. I ate some spicy food today. So I am just like a fire-breathing dragon, you know? I was actually hoping it was going to be spicier. I was actually hoping it was going to be spicier than it actually was. It was the type of spiciness where it like takes you up. It like slowly takes you up, goes woo, and then it like leaves you there. Like if this is like the top of the world, right? Then it just kind of leaves you right here. I'd say, just kind of goes, and then it like for a while. But I found that you could easily cut it with some cream or all that, so it wasn't such a absurd spice. Still pretty spicy. I found myself sitting there going like, oh, like breathing like a fire-breathing dragon. And then it made me feel all tingly. It made me feel all tingly and alive. Oh, man. Ligon to Z, good to see you, bud. Good to see you. Coming back from... Dude, I've been doing capitalism way too much. Way too much capitalism this last little while. My capitalist job... Yeah, it did a capitalism, as capitalism always does. Like, we're constantly running at, like, the absolute threadbare, like, the bare minimum that we can get away with, right? Got to make sure your labor is tight. Got to make sure, because, you know, the capitalists need to take their pound of flesh, and they don't participate or do anything worthwhile, but they get paid, so we got to make sure that we cut staff as much as possible. And then we had one person who, like, we let go somebody because they did something very stupid, and... that means that I had to do a bunch of closes and had to do a bunch of stuff and like make sure that we get everything sorted. And I'm watching, I think the hardest part about it is watching good people who I respect, who actually do work, unlike the capitalist class, right? Unlike the owners of the establishment, who are worthless, do nothing important whatsoever. Watching them have to like really take it on the chin and really do like a whole bunch of extra work and really like put a lot more of themselves into it than they have to and then they should, and in return they're going to get what, like some extra wages, I guess. Like they'll get some extra wages. That's fine. Meanwhile, the whole ship keeps moving on behalf of a group of people who we don't meet and don't see, and they don't really care to know who we are, and when they do come and meet us, it's all glad-handing and smiley smiles, but they're, like, not valuable. Like, since these guys have taken over, they're just wasting our money, like, in huge, significant ways. They're just, like, wasting money. My absolute favorite is that they, like, reconfigured the entire establishment to be a wine bar. Right? A wine bar. Sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? A wine bar. Sounds like a super good idea. Okay, but we're in a location where there's no transit access. We're in like a historical site. So it's like there's no transit access past like 7 p.m. So you want to do a wine bar. Okay, how do people get to your wine bar? How do people get to your wine bar? And the answer is, they don't. So immediate failure. Like immediate failure. That guy, good to see you, bud. Good to see you. Hope you guys are all doing well out there. So I am like in a recovery day. I had to cancel yesterday's stream over all of this, which it was very frustrating. I'm kind of used to sort of being on the fence with Monday's stream, you know, because of how things go. But having to cancel Tuesday's stream was like really annoying. So I'm really glad to be back. Really glad to be here. And it seems to me as though the society is starting to put two and two together and realize that, like, wait a minute, we absolutely could collapse into fascism. Like, we absolutely could collapse into fascism. Yeah, we got some, and I think you're right. We got somebody in the YouTube chat. The Western world will never become communist. We're too individualistic for that. Yet we'll experience a balkanization and a civil war first. I think that's correct, right? I think that's correct. Yeah. Oh no, somebody's afraid of nail polish. Sorry, dude. I'm sorry you're a baby. Like, I'm sorry you're a little kid that gets chased away by nail polish. Like, sorry, bud. Like, I'm sorry that you're so childish and incapable of grappling with things that nail polish is scary to you. Like, this is the worship of stupidity that I keep talking about on this channel. This is just, like, people looking for the most babyish, idiotic, childish reason to disregard people, right? And it's no wonder that we're going through this incredible period of anti-trans sentiment. Like, people are babies. Like, we live in a society that, as somebody already pointed out, is hyper individualistic, right? The worship of individualism, it's like pretty clear, but the worship of money, and just like, and we see it on display here, just like the worship of stupidity, like just straight up like, oh no, nail polish. Seriously, dude, like get laid, like go find a girl. Like, do you know how many times I get complimented on this stuff? Like, it is grow up time for people, man. Like, too many little kids in the discourse, too many children, and we're gonna pay a pretty difficult and tough price for it, right? Pretty heavy price. Yeah, I gave my son a doll and a fascist head exploded in Norway. You mean an action figure, right? Boys don't play with dolls. Boys play with action figures. Yeah, we're certainly not snowflakes. Like, we're certainly not little babies who are afraid of, like, makeup and nail polish. Like how sad. What a sad, pathetic existence to be afraid of somebody wearing nail polish. To be so just like, oh, you're wearing nail polish. You're a bad person. Like, you're a baby. Like, just unbelievable. Yeah, She-Ra, not He-Man. Exactly. Grinning, good to see you. Doom to Bloom, Straz, good to see you guys. Adam, good to see you. Grinning says, I'm changing the starter out of a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Capitalism design stupid vehicles 100%. Dude, planned obsolescence and planned, what is it? There is a term for it, but I forget what it is offhand. But, like, we could 100% make a vehicle that would be very simple. It would run on very simple parts. It would be easy, dirt easy to repair. It would be essentially indestructible. We actually made a vehicle that the capitalists, I believe it was it Ford or Toyota? No, I think it was Ford. They made a truck in like 1969, if I'm not mistaken. You can see it. There's this great Top Gear episode where they actually talk about this truck, and they do this really amazing episode about this truck where it was essentially indestructible. And it becomes like this really sought after vehicle for desert locations, right? And was it the Toyota Hilux? I think you might be right. In any case, they made this vehicle, and literally the Top Gear guys at one point like put it on the coast and let the tide come in over it, and then they just walked up to it and turned it on. It was completely fine. They blew up a building with it on top of it, and they were able to turn the engine on with just using some like basic tools, things like this. Yeah, it's dubbed the War Chariot of the Third World. Yeah, exactly. You can find a Top Gear episode about this. That we are more than capable of making indestructible mechanics and indestructible machinery, but the reason why they stopped making it? Because capitalists can't make profit on the repairs of this. They need to do planned obsolescence. And this is what they're talking about when they're talking about capitalist innovation. Capitalist innovation is stuff like planned obsolescence. It's stuff like creating stuff that's designed to break, that they don't want anything to last. That, like, what they want to do is they want to offer you a warranty, and they want it to break the day after the warranty. That's the way it's designed to be. And this whole narrative, that planned obsolescence, and the idea that they're not building stuff that's designed to last, but they're building stuff that's designed to break, absolutely implodes the idea of capitalist innovation. That capitalist innovation is just make stupid design choices in the hopes that it will break and force people to buy extra shit. Really, very, very simple. Good to see you too, Staz. Doom to Bloom, well, look what the cat dragged in. You mean the pug? I got a little pug here who's looking at me with a little lovey-dovey face. Yes, I know, Doom to Bloom. I had to cancel yesterday's stream, and I'm pissed off about it too. But it's I'm here now, so we can talk about the absolute ridiculous chaos that's going on in the world. Apparently, the bridge and sign are not in the original video of that famous car skidding meme. For those on TikTok, I have a meme here. Actual solutions, and the other thing is fascism, capitalism in crisis. Car is just going straight towards fascism, because that's what we do. That's what we do, right? How's Cuba doing in maintaining their old cars? Yeah, it's true, actually. Like, all the cars in Cuba are like old, like 1950s cars. It's actually really cool. how they have all these old cars that they just constantly fix up. Yeah, they need you to buy the next 60K car every 10 years. Exactly, dude. Exactly. That's your there's your capitalist innovation right there. Look at this idiot. He wants to live in a society where things work and don't break constantly. Or my absolute favorite is all these iPhones and all this kind of stuff. They just keep updating it, and the software that they update it with makes it so that the thing that you're using stops working eventually. Like, and they do that on purpose. It's like so obvious that they're doing this all on purpose, and we're all just like, yeah, gotta buy the next one next year. Oh, did you hear? This one's worse. So, in fun, interesting news, right? Mexico is not a U.S. colony. AMLO condemns invasion threats, celebrates nationalization of oil and lithium. Mexico's leftist president AMLO condemned hypocritical Republicans who want the U.S. military to invade, declaring Mexico is an independent and free country, not a U.S. colony or protectorate. In a massive rally, López Obrador also celebrated the expropriation of oil and lithium, condemning exploitive foreign corporations. Mexico's got to get some liberty. The Mexicans been taken over by a dictatorship. The dictatorship of Lopez. We got to go in there and make sure that Lopez can't be the dictator of Mexico any longer, even though he's completely democratically elected. But we got to go in there, make sure that the oil and lithium is free to be shared on the free market. Like, who are we not going to go to war with, right? You literally have Republicans just being like. We're just going to go to war with everybody. We're like the weird little Nazis on the world stage, and everybody knows it now. Like, there's no secrets anymore. It's really, really obvious that if you're like, if you're in Africa or in the Middle East being like, I think the United States is the land of freedom, then you've got a fucking nail in your head, right? It's literally only Americans that are so duped into believing that the United States is anything but a weird little Nazi state at this point. That is incidentally collapsing into an internal civil war that is obvious to see. Like, I did a walk around video today, and I talked about what I consider to be the three pillars of the decline of Western civilization, and I was sort of like, why did I do that? You know, and it's because I wanted something to be able to clarify my thoughts and constantly remember and remind ourselves that, like, we worship stupidity. Like, we're a very dim-witted and stupid people. Like, we actually think, like, we're actually walking around being like, we're the greatest. Everyone loves us. We're the greatest country in the world. And we're like Nazis. We're like weird little Nazis who are just like absolutely blowing up the entire rest of the world to the point where the president of Mexico, the fucking president of Mexico, guys, like, I know that Americans don't actually pay attention to what's going on in the world. I know that they don't know where things are on maps. I know that they don't really have an education system, but they know where Mexico is, right? That there are lots of like Latinos that live in America. That Americans generally know what a Mexican is, and they have a general understanding of that. And now you've got the leader of Mexico having to condemn threats of invasion. Like, is there anything that the United States won't stoop to? Is there any degree that the United States and its people will not stoop to doing? And are we actually going to see it? Are we actually going to see Anemone? Good to see you, by the way, Anemone. Mexico's leftist president Andres Manuel López Obrador, AMLO, organized a massive rally in the heart of the capital, honoring the anniversary of the country's nationalization of its oil reserves and expropriation of foreign corporations. Oh, look, a reasonable response to the collapse of the global order, right? A reasonable response to the collapse of this evil Nazi organization would be the nationalization of your oil reserves. Yeah, let's stop enriching corporate sociopaths who are abandoning the society and trying to poison everybody and destroy everything, and instead use that for our own benefit. Wow, what a crazy idea. AMLO also used the demonstration as an opportunity to publicly condemn U.S. politicians who have proposed militarily invading Mexico to combat drug trafficking. Yeah, drug trafficking, right? You know where they should start combating drug trafficking? The CIA. That's where they should start, right? Like, we know that the CIA, a part of the reason why they're in Afghanistan, a part of the reason why they're in the Middle East is to grow opium, right? That they have people protecting opium fields so that they can get heroin and fentanyl into the United States. Like, we know they're doing that. And the idea that like, we're supposed to pretend like they're not. Like what we are watching is a collapse of the nation-state system, the global order, into like corporate ownership structures. And the corporate ownership structures is not happy with a guy like AMLO. Yeah, they're going to invade another nation over drugs? No, it's not. It's not about drugs. It's about getting access to the lithium and the oil, obviously. Like, the United States is full of liars, right? Like, it's a grifting society. They're not going to actually be... Like, take a look at this whole TikTok ban thing, right? Take a look at the whole, like, TikTok ban narrative that's going around now, where the Congress passes a bill that they hand to the president so that the president has the authority now to ban TikTok if he wants, right? And they're all saying, like, this is because TikTok is owned by the Chinese. TikTok is owned by the Chinese, and the Chinese are coming over here and using TikTok as a spying tool on the people, right? It's all total bullshit. The entire reason that they're trying to ban TikTok, obviously they're trying to ban TikTok because people like me are being given a platform. They're all the reason why we know about the destruction of the Ohio derailment. The Ohio derailment, it is the moment where I think these guys start looking at each other being like, oh shit, like, we got to make sure that people can't talk about this. Like, people would not know about the Ohio derailment if not for TikTok. Straight up, flat out, 100% that is the case. That when the derailment happened, I was trying to send out videos, but I have a fairly small TikTok following, and then it got attached to larger and larger influencers and people who are already well established, and it just became a big international story through TikTok. And so then right after that, you got a bunch of guys being like, oh, TikTok, it's Chinese propaganda, even though it's like owned by Americans. And all of the information goes through American sources. And if the Chinese actually wanted all of the information that exists through these social medias, they could just buy it from Facebook, because that's what Facebook does. That's Facebook's entire profit model, is to take information that they gather from the people that's given to them through Facebook and through downloading it from the apps and manipulating your feeds and all of this, and selling it to people. And so a Chinese guy would just walk up and the Chinese government would just be like, hey, can we buy that? And Facebook, because they don't have any loyalty. They don't give a shit about, like, well, these people are Chinese and it's American. They don't care. They care about the money's good. And so they're just going to pay for it. Like, this idea that the Chinese have done this big thing where they're like, yeah, we made an app and we're using that. It's like, it's so fucking stupid. Like, you've got to be stupid, right? You've got to be stupid to believe this, when literally anyone can just buy all that information from Facebook anyway. And it's just, once again, it's just this overwhelming display of the worship of stupidity right in front of our faces. Yeah, I know it isn't about drugs. How are they even going to do this? Like, just enter? Yeah. Why isn't there global outcry? I mean, why isn't there global outcry? Because everybody's dealing with their own shit constantly. That's why. Like, every country is now in a crisis. That we are seeing major protests around the world. I've seen protests in Spain, France, Britain, South Africa. Like, we're seeing them. Every country is having some kind of major protest going on, because every country is having to realize that we are all essentially going through an independence movement, and that independence is from the corporate global system. That we are all declaring our independence from corporatists. That there is we tend to think of politics as like a nation-state system. That America is a nation, and Canada is a nation, and Mexico is a nation, and all of these nations exist, and they're all negotiating with one another. Well, there's a layer above that, which is corporate owned, that has no loyalty and does not give two fucks at all about any of these nations whatsoever. that if they can make money by destroying their hometown, they will. Like, they will. Like, if they have to contaminate the water and destroy the soil and pollute the air and kill off 30% of the population, poison all their food, right? They will. We're watching them do it in real time. Like, I don't know what more evidence you absolutely need to see that this is the case. And we're all declaring our independence from this system. Well, all of the rational nations are attempting to declare their independence from it, while Canada and the United States seem to be doubling down on this idea that, like, yeah, the best way to run a community is by destroying it and poisoning everything. Yeah, sure, the environment, but, also the economy. Yeah, also the economy matters. Yeah, it is crazy. How is it acceptable to invade someone for any other reason other than they're becoming fascist? Like, self-defense seems to be the only reason that makes any sense whatsoever. I mean, that's essentially Russia's justification. Don't forget Australia. We'll see about Australia. Like, Australia's weird. Like, it's got a weird other thing happening where it looks like there are forces rising up throughout their parliamentary system that are being disruptive in a more progressive leftist way. That the parliamentary system that exists in Australia is, they have a ranked choice ballot system. And so the shitty system that we have, which is essentially a duopoly, only really lets you choose between a fascist or somebody who's slightly better than a fascist, who ends up being kind of a corporate imperialist anyway, which is like fascist adjacent, with the justification that, well, at least the fascist didn't get in, and if you try to vote for a third party, it's like, well, you're just throwing your vote away, there's not enough support. Whereas in a ranked choice ballot system, nobody's vote ever gets thrown away. That you select who your first choice is, and then if that person doesn't accumulate enough to get in, well, then those ballots they get their second choice, and then third choice, and down the line. And so if enough people are basically like, yeah, this independent, I would prefer that independent, then suddenly the independent can actually get in, right? And it gives independent voices and smaller parties an opportunity to actually get in. And it's starting to work in Australia. Because the Australians are in a more unique position than Canada and the United States. Like, Australia doesn't view China the way that we view China. That, sure, you have your, like, racists as they exist throughout the Western world, the white supremacists as they exist throughout the Western world, but, like, the real hard truth is that Australia's major trading partner is China. That they're, like, right there. And it's cheaper to trade with them than it is to get to Europe, right? Like, you think about, like, shipping a boat to Europe from Australia. Well, would you prefer to do that, or you prefer to ship a boat to China, which is right fucking there, right? Not to mention the, like, island system that's there that lets you have, like, little ports and little places that you can, so you have all kinds of safety things all throughout. That, geographically speaking, Australia wants to continue building a relationship with China. It's just they're stuck in this, like, political rock and a hard place sort of situation, and the intelligence community and the intelligentsia throughout Australia really do want to remain neutral. They really do want to have this, like, oh, you guys are planning a war to go to war with China because you're psychopaths. Oh, we kind of want to stay in the middle of that. Like, we don't want to pick a side. And the Americans are just telling Australia straight up, you're going to have to pick a side, right? You're going to have to pick a side. And I do think that Australia will get strong-armed into picking America, right? Because America's a psychopath and there's no limit to the depravity that the United States is willing to inflict on the rest of the world, right? Like, it's just so clear. That guy says Reagan never started the war on drugs. He continued the war on the poor by using drugs. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it for sure. Vincent Thomas, the U.S. is full of liars. It's a grifting society. So true. I don't want to be here anymore. Struggling just to maintain a place to live in this insane rental market. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's where do you think all the homeless people are coming from? Like, where do you think all of this happens? Like, you jack the rent up, like, way above what people can pay. Like, there isn't a single state in the United States where a minimum wage job will pay the rent. Like, what do you think is happening? But again, like, we live in this society that worships money, worships the individual, like the self-worship, and worships stupidity. And so we're not really interested in solving these problems. We're interested in giving more money to individuals, and that's how we justify who is good, right? And who is righteous in the society is the person who has the most amount of money. And it doesn't matter if they're just an incompetent, insipid idiot like Elon Musk. Like, it doesn't matter if they're just like a total boob. It doesn't matter if they're like a pedophile like Gates. Like, none of it matters. They have money, therefore they are good, right? That's all. And Vincent, I'm sorry to hear this, that you've already been homeless and you're close to being there again. Like, it is going to take like huge pushes, especially in America. Like, it's going to take huge pushes. And the place is going to balkanize. Like, the place is going to balkanize. The United States is not interested in being a unified country. Like, it really isn't. It's not unified, and it's not interested in being a unified country. You could just take a look at what's coming out of the right wing right now, and how and the stupid response to it. Like, people keep trying to play this both sides argument, where like, oh, the left is this and the right is this. It's like, we got problems on the far left and the far right. You got Justin Trudeau saying, like, I'm much more concerned about the far left than I am about the far right. Literally, the far left is being like, we should get rid of homelessness. Everyone should have health care, right? If you're working a full-time job, you should definitely be able to have a decent life, right? These are things that come out of the far left. What comes out of the far right? What comes out of the far right? Natalia, I'm probably not going to talk to you. You know why? Because I talk to a lot of Nazis. If you want to actually talk to me, you can come on over to YouTube, right? And I'll answer your questions and all of this. This dude will be at the front of the complaining when communism happens. Sure, bud. Yeah, sure. Definitely, I'm 100% sure that you know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to communism. I'm sure you're not just an illiterate boob saying buzzwords that you hear from the CIA. Absolutely. Oh, so sick and tired of these kids, man. John Gutre, missed you, man. Glad to see you. Good to see you too, bud. I don't know, man. One of these days I might hit that accept button and then immediately regret it once I just start talking to an outright Nazi. Too many Nazis, man. Too many Nazis. And it's always the Nazis that are like, I'm going to talk to this guy and I'm going to put this guy straight. Sure you will, bud. Doom to Bloom, I'm a little behind in the stream, John, but you heard about the leak in Minnesota, right? I think I did hear about that, but let's search it up anyway. Oil leak, Minnesota. I mean, of course there's an oil leak in Minnesota. Of course there's an oil leak in Minnesota. Why shouldn't there be? Is it this? Line 3 oil spill? No, this is 91. Yeah, they're confidently incorrect. Yeah, it's the confidence that I really love. That's my absolute favorite. Oh, it's a nuclear power plant. Even better. Minnesota nuclear power plant leaks 400,000 gallons. 400,000 gallons of radioactive water. Capitalism, it's working out. Capitalism, it's working out. It's the greatest in the world and everyone should love it. Just ignore the constant explosions, derailments, leaks. Like, literally, this is radioactive. 400,000 gallons. 400,000 gallons of radioactive water leaking from a Minnesota nuclear power plant. Like, get utterly fucked. This is why when people come on to the, let's get it to 500,000! Let's go! 400,000, those rookie numbers! Rookie numbers! Those are low-level numbers, man! We need 1 million gallons! If we don't get 1 million gallons of radioactive water, then the Chinese will beat us. This is how we get superheroes! We need more radioactive waste. Because then kids will drink the radioactive water, and then they'll get superpowers. And then we'll show those Chinese this is what's what. Like, this is where we're fucking at, dude. This is where we're fucking at. Good comment. Good comment. Hit sensation, Josh. You are a hit sensation, Josh. Never forget it. Never let them get you down. Like, this is why when people come into this TikTok thing and start talking the way that they do, I'm just like, you're babies. Like, grow up. You're living in a country that is having, like, derailments, leaks, literal explosions, poisoning the water supply. Like, is it... And the only reason you think everything's fine is because you live with your parents and you just, like, walk from point A to point B and then back to point A. You don't go anywhere. You don't know anything. You don't listen to anyone. You don't talk to anyone. Like, all you're doing is just, like, doing the stupid job that you're told is, yeah, this is the way. I'm going to grind set. I'm going to put in my time. I'm going to grind set. And then I'm going to have a house. And I'll retire early. You watch. And then you go home. You just put on porn, jerk off to it. Go to sleep, wake up, do it again with the hope that, like, yeah, I'm going to grind set my way there. And then, you know what's going to happen? You're going to turn 40. You're going to realize it was all a scam because you live in a society of grifters. And you're going to be fat. And you're going to be poisoned. Your sperm count's going to be in the toilet. Why? Because everything you eat and consume is going to be poisonous. And you're going to find it more difficult to even breathe the air. Like, these people who are walking in here being like, capitalism's great! They're so fucking stupid. Like, they're so fucking stupid that I can't even begin to tell you how stupid I think these people are. They are so stupid that I actually have built in to the ethos of capitalism as one of the structural pillars of the decline of Western civilization, the worship of stupidity. You've got to intentionally be stupid at this point to actually try to stand up and defend a system that is obviously betraying you. That is obviously betraying you. Like, every single state now has, like, explosions, chemical leaks, like, and in the meantime, while all of that is happening, and the federal government is just like going like, oh, what are you talking about? I guess we'll send somebody somewhere, I suppose. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. While they're, like, looking off into the sky, a fucking bank goes, oh, I bet all my money on cryptocurrency, and it collapses, and the federal government is like, oh, goodness me, the fake money we invented, oh my goodness, and you took the fake money that we invented, and you invested into a fake money that you invested in, and it all failed? Oh my goodness, we need money for you, oh my goodness, raise the taxes, make sure that all the productivity goes towards these useless tits, these useless boobs, like, and then people come in here and try to tell me that they live in a serious society and that there are serious people running around, and that communism killed 100 bazillions of people, and I know that that's true because the media system that won't tell me anything told me that. Duh! Like, I ate a lot of spicy food today, so I'm feeling really spicy. And I've got a whole bunch more, so I'm really quite happy that I'm eating more spicy food, right? I love it. Yeah, Nazis, good to see you, Ben. Nazis are like, if I'm attacking people, I'll never have to defend myself. That's right. That's right. It's like, why be worried? Why have a gun and be worried about my neighbor attacking me? I'll go on the offensive, right? We got to do the first strike. Right, that's the Bush thing, right? They've got weapons of mass destruction, and we got to get in there before they can get us. Like, the sinking pit feeling grows. Yeah, Cotton, good to see you, bud. Cotton with a strong comment right out the gate. Guys, I'm a CIA agent. Just saying, Cotton, I got to tell you, dude. If you ended up being a CIA agent, I would be very impressed. I would be very impressed with your con. Well done, sir. Like, if that's the truth, then people, like, CIA agents will have to look at your work and study it, because you're just magnificent. Yeah, it's on a fire sale. We're out here going broke. It's from making the bombs woke. Yeah, exactly. Anemone, I mean, if you're a pedo, most billionaires are, then you probably don't care about the environment either. Obviously not. You've already demonstrated twice you don't care about humanity. Yeah. I mean, I should say all billionaires are pedos. Some are just unconfirmed. Yeah, I mean, yeah, unconfirmed. Yeah, we all go to the same parties, but yeah, I definitely am not like, yeah, I'm a billionaire and I hang out with pedophiles, but I myself am not a pedophile, right? Yeah, great. Anemone, there's money that's fake and there's credit that's fake squared. Yeah, it's look, it's all fake. It's all fucking fake. It's all fucking fake. That's the best part. That's the best part about this whole fucking thing. Is that like the unholy trinity, right? The unholy trinity of the fucking Illuminati. Well, that peak right there, right at the tippy top, that's the worship of money. That's the worship of money. That we're all just like, oh, money, you are God, oh, money. Elon Musk, our prince and king. Money, money. And it doesn't exist, and it's fake, and it's not real. Like, and it's worse than a belief in God, right? For the atheists in the chat, and I know that you're out there, you're sitting there being like, oh, that God is a concept, it doesn't exist, we invented it in the first place. Well, at least the people who are attempting to talk about God as like a concept, as like a universal force, as like a creative force that exists, are trying to articulate something. And they're trying to like grapple with what it is, why we're here, and what is reality, and like the possible sentience of our reality, and the existence of energies that exist outside of our ken, and the largeness and the scale of the structure that we're all in. The money being not real is on a much deeper and stupider level. That on its best possible level, it's like, this is an abstract notion of someone's labor. But it's not. You know, it doesn't really actually have anything to do with labor. We literally print it. We just print billions of dollars of this and just send it around and say, yeah, you could buy a castle with that. Sure. Yeah, whatever. Buy the entire housing market and make a bunch of people homeless. Yeah, and you can do that because money. Money. And of course, the person who has the most amount of money is the best person, which is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Like, the dumbest possible concept is that I have $1 billion, therefore I am a good person, and you should definitely take seriously what I have to say. Like, we used to literally hang these people, right? Well, there was a period of time where we'd be like, oh, that guy has all the money, and we've got a bunch of problems, we should go to his house and hang him. And now we're all like, oh my god, Elon Musk, did you see his tweet? Oh, he's so clever. Like, what a bunch of losers we are. We deserve everything we're getting, because we're so stupid, and we're so happy about it. We're so happy about it, dude. I've been at Transylvania, good to see you. I've been recovering from a cold, and an angry John rant is exactly what I needed. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Like what a I'm happy to deliver, man. I'm over a cold. I just ate a shit ton of spicy food. My dog is like whining at me because he's like, I want more food, even though I've definitely eaten all my food. Milo, you've eaten all your food for the day, right? I know that you want more food, but too bad, fat chubby pug. Too bad, fat chubby pug. I didn't get my sound set up, so that's stupid. I gotta remember to do that. I'm so bad at that. What do I want? Yeah, here's a great video. These are the protests happening in France, right? Here's some pictures. This is from what, CBC News? Yeah, CBC News. Like, France literally lighting fires in the streets, right? Like doing you know, what needs to be done at this stage in the game. Like, we literally should be burning down the system, literally, like brick by brick, tearing it apart, because it has proven itself to have no credibility whatsoever. It is incredulous in literally exactly the way that you're thinking. That it because the system has no credibility, right? That the system of capital, which is no longer an economic system, it is exclusively a religious ideology, right? A religious ideology that I have identified as the worship of money, the worship of the individual, and the worship of stupidity. That those three trifectas are what make the ideology of the capitalist death cult. Well, because of this, it is physically impossible for this capitalist model and for this religious ideology to actually solve problems. Because solving problems would actually run counter to the ideology of the death cult. That we need to depower the capitalist class. We need to depower the corporate class. We need to take wealth and assets and value away from the capitalists and transfer it into the hands of the working class and the people, right? Like houses. There are capitalists that are just sitting on thousands of empty houses while people are starving in the streets, right? We could take those people and put them into houses. We could do that. It would be easy to do. It would be we could literally do it in the space of a month. Like, it would be actually that simple. Milo, dude, are you whining because you want a ball? Is that what you're doing? Yeah. Go get it. But we can't do it. Why? Because we worship money. We think that the people who have the money are good, and we're too stupid to recognize how stupid that is. That's the best part, is that we're so stupid that we can't recognize how stupid we are. Like, and that is actually going to get worse. My favorite part about all of this is that as the collapses set in, as the system begins to collapse in more and more significant and serious ways, the people, the ruling class, who are desperately stupid, are going to make a series of decisions very quickly, like boom, 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 while everyone is heightened and afraid, and those series of decisions are going to be the stupidest possible decisions, even for them. Like, even for them, even from this grifting position that all of the political class is coming from, where I need to enrich myself as fast as possible, they're going to make these series of rapid-fire, idiotic decisions that are going to even hurt them. Like, it's absolutely incredible watching the West fail this way, and watching the decline happen in major real time. And it's going to get faster, and it's going to get stupider, because the capitalist class is going to have to double down on its stupidity, because it's all it has left. It doesn't have any credibility. It can't regain its credibility, so it just needs to become stupider. And that's why you're seeing figures like Peterson and figures like Shapiro actually in the discourse, instead of being looked at and being like, oh, you guys are fucking stupid. And they are. They're desperately stupid people who for some reason are taken seriously. Transylvanian, the idea follows quite naturally from Calvinism, actually. Once you adopt the view that God rewards the righteous with material wealth, then it's logical the wealthy are the most righteous, exactly. And that the poor are unrighteous, right? Even though literally Christ is walking around saying, sell your money and give it to the poor. My absolute favorite part about these frauds, about these absolute stupid, illiterate frauds that are running throughout and are running the government at this stage in the game, are that they're all literally walking around with a Bible that they don't read and they don't care about. I can't think of a better way to discredit Christianity than these guys. Like, there's no Christians in the United States. Like, what are you even talking about? These guys walking around holding these Bibles, they don't read these things. They're too stupid and illiterate. They don't read. They don't know anything. And if they did, they would find out that, like, oh, Christ says sell your stuff and give it to the poor. Huh. How about that? Right? But instead of that, they're all trying to ban trans people. Like, this is the big thing. Everything's about, like, we got to ban these trans people, which is just like a hysteria on a hysteria. It's giving a shit about something. Like, my absolute favorite thing that these guys will say is like, oh, these trans people, they're pedophile groomers. And I'm like, if you were actually concerned about pedophile groomers, you would be very concerned about the Catholic Church, and you would be very concerned about the billionaire class and the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. But they're not, right? They're not. They don't actually care about the pedophile groomer angle, right? And I almost guarantee that for every pedophile you found that was trans, you would find 1,000 that were straight. So should we have a big straight purge, right? Should we make it so that people can't dress like straight people? Like, it's insane that there are dress codes coming in. It's insane what's happening throughout the United States, but we're so fucking desperately dedicated to our stupidity that we're just going to keep doing it. We're just going to keep doing it. Yeah, and people here make memes about the French being cowards who surrender all the time. Yeah, I'm like, you're the one who surrenders. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that idea, the quote-unquote French surrendering, comes from World War II, when the Nazis used a blitzkrieg attack against the French for the first time in warfare history. That the French, like Paris, had received notice that the Germans were coming, And the French were like, okay, well, the Germans are coming, so we'll get prepared and like have a good night's sleep. Because up until that point, it takes a day or two to get there, right? Like, oh, they're coming? Oh, very good, we'll get prepared, right? But the Blitzkrieg changed the travel time from a day to an hour. And so by the time the French were even aware that the Germans were there, they were already in the middle of their cities. So it's like, well, what are you going to do? Well, you going to start fighting? Like, you're gonna start fighting right there when you got your pants out and your dick in your hand? Probably not. Probably not, right? You're going to surrender because that's your only option. Like, that is your only option. So this idea that the French are cowards who surrendered is like, nah, bro, like, literally everybody would do the same thing. Adam, speaking of the invasion of Iraq, keep an eye out for supposed leftist platforming Colonel Douglas McGregor. McGregor is an Iraq invasion supporter. He even advised Bush regime to invade Iraq in 2002. I've been listening to that guy in regards to his perspective for what's going on in Ukraine, and he seems fairly accurate a lot of the time. I take your point, though. Like, it is true that he supported the Iraq war. I would like to hear his opinion on that now. I'd like to hear his position on that now. But I have actually been listening to this guy, and believe me, I don't think that guy's a leftist. Like, I don't listen to Colonel Douglas McGregor and hear a guy that's like, yeah, I'm a left-wing guy. Like, I see a guy who's just seeing through a lot of the nonsense, seeing through a little bit more of the, like, we're not going to win this thing, right? Like, America's not going to win this thing. Like, that's not going to happen. And the idea that they're going to is just absolutely crazy. And yet we're all supposed to continue believing it. It was the first time it was used. Yeah, no one was ever prepared. Exactly. Yeah, he's also an apologist for the use of depleted uranium munitions. He gets platformed because he's one of the few voices in U.S. media not completely delusional about Ukraine. I think that's what it comes down to, right? And that's certainly why I like to hear his perspective. Because when I listen to other voices coming out of the U.S. media about Ukraine, they're delusional. Like, the delusion is really high. Like really, really, like... Yeah, I think that's what it is, Vincent Thomas. He's an honest military analyst and a nationalist. Yeah, that's right. He's military, right? And, like, my position is, like, we should be listening to what, like, if you're reasonable, like, if you're not reasonable, but if you're, like, capable of seeing what facts are, if you understand that 1 + 1 = 2, if you understand that, well, that guy has 100 bullets and that guy has 1,000,000 bullets, so that guy with the 1,000,000 bullets is going to win, right? If you can put that together, at this stage in the game, the analysis is so depleted and so bad. Like, the analysis that's coming out of CNN and Fox and MSNBC and all these places are so trash and completely bereft of even the most basic rational thinking that at this stage in the game, I'm going to be like, yeah, let's listen to the guy that was wrong about Iraq, that supported uranium munitions, because he still thinks 1 + 1 = 2. And if his perspective is, 1 + 1 = 2, and therefore, right, then perhaps we should listen to that. And then also criticize him for his position on the Iraq war, which, incidentally, I'd like to hear what he had to say about that recently. Like, I just think that there's not that many voices that are actually willing to stand up. Like, if you want to hear a really good voice about what's going on in Ukraine, you want to listen to John Mearsheimer. You can find John Mearsheimer on YouTube. He's all over Chris Hedges' page, and his perspective on what's going on in Ukraine is extremely accurate, and I think is pretty on the money, right? Pretty on the money. And it's just very simply that, like, hey, if you don't know about the 2014 coup, like, I don't think that you can have a serious position. And if you're not willing to talk about the 2014 coup, if you're not willing to talk about the history of NATO encroachment, if you're not willing to talk about the history of what was going on, and all you think is, Russia bad because Putin invade, like, I just don't think you're a serious person. But I don't think many Americans are very serious these days, which is why the society is collapsing and the IQ is going in the toilet and the whole thing is fucking up. Because we're just not serious people. We're just like scared little monkeys, basically. what I'm showing here is a bunch of pictures from what's going on in France. You've just got like major mass protests, literally like garbage bins on fire, big major blockades. My favorite picture I've seen so far, I haven't seen it here, but is the farmers blocking street traffic with tractors. Right? I love it. I love it. This is the kind of thing that it's going to take, by the way. Like, this is what it's going to take. Anything less than this, and this to me is not even, like, this probably isn't going to be enough, right? Like, that the people of France will eventually be quelled. Like, this is a minor rebellion, and it will be quelled. Because the capitalist death cult has become so psychotic that it's not interested in responding rationally any longer. And the militancy of the people will have to become more and more extreme until they're willing to just walk into the halls of power and depose leadership directly. Because the societies have, like, we have gone insane. What we are doing is insane. Like, like, you really think about what is happening with the media sphere right now. That, like, all of the corporate media has become utterly untrustworthy. Like, absolutely untrustworthy. And where we're not even, and I think the craziest part is that people are still listening to it, thinking it's something other than propaganda. Like, that's what's insane to me, is when people are like, yeah, did you hear what Shapiro had to say? Oh man, I heard that Rachel, whatever her dumb name is, right? It's amazing to watch. It's absolutely incredible to see people take these people seriously instead of recognizing that they are all corporate boobs. Good to see you, Ethan. Happy to catch a stream finally. How's everyone doing? Hope you're doing well. I ate a ton of spicy food. I've got a playful little pug here. Oh, Milo, you can't drop it down there, dude. Go get it. Go get it. And, like, I love, here's a, we got an abacus data, committed federal vote, right, here in Canada. So if a vote were to happen today, there's actually a really good chance the Conservatives would take power, right? Whether it be a minority or a majority, that would be yet to be seen. But, like, we're seeing stories where the conservative leadership is meeting with Nazis. Like, we're seeing stories coming out where conservative leaders and conservative MPs are literally meeting with, like, Nazis. Straight up, like, far-right Nazis. And they're just meeting with them, shaking their hands, getting their pictures taken. This is a normal society we live in. And it seems to me like, how is this not affecting their base? Well, it's because their base are Nazis. Like, I mean, there just comes a point where you got to call it. And you just got to say, like, oh, you watched your leader shake hands with a well-known neo-Nazi. They spread it throughout their socials. Everyone's like, hey, a neo-Nazi. Hi, neo-Nazi. Well, you have to be a Nazi. Like, at least you have to be okay with Nazis. And it's just like, and these are the guys that are probably going to take power here in Canada, should an election happen, right? And not that the Liberals are even that much better. Like, the Liberals basically fund Nazis overseas. The Conservatives are the Nazis. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the Liberals are doing the same. They're just meeting with Ukrainians instead of Canadian Nazis. Yeah, exactly. Like, because there's no Ukrainian nationalists whatsoever. There certainly isn't a strong Stepan Bandera movement throughout Canada, right? That people pretend doesn't exist. Like, people just want to put their fingers in their ears and just be like, la 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 la, that certainly doesn't exist. La la la. No, John, you're the crazy one, right? Yeah. It's you, John. Even though we keep erecting, like, Nazi statues and shit like this, being like, this statue exists to praise Stepan Bandera, the great Nazi leader. Milo, dude, what are you on about, man? What are you on about? Here, 1 second, guys. I actually do have to give Milo some water. Give me 1 second. Okay, Milo, you get some water. Here you go, bud. Here you go, my man. You've had lots of food, okay, bud? I can't say no to your cute little face. I can't say no to your cute little face, can I? Have some treats, buddy. Have some treats. I know you like those treats. I'm a sucker for a pug, man. I tell you what. If you ever see a video of a pug, you're seeing the same pug. There is only one pug. They're all the same pug. Yep, Rhino Party or GTFO, absolutely. Transylvanian Tucker started doing McGregor's rise in popularity. He's fake opposition. I mean, I don't know if he's fake opposition. Like, that's an interesting point or an interesting question. If you can't spoil a dog, who can you spoil? Very straightforward. If you can't spoil a dog, who are you spoiling? Look, I don't think it... To me, with McGregor, I just don't think it matters. Like, is he like, how is he fake, quote-unquote, fake opposition? Like, he's literally... Like... What would fake opposition be in this particular case? Like opposition to ending the war? Like, I don't even understand how fake opposition works in this context. Like, he's not of a party. He's not like Yeah, isn't that Freeland woman in the Trudeau's administration? Our deputy prime minister, yeah, a dyed-in-the-wool Banderite, her grandfather... So, this is great, guys. Chrystia Freeland's grandfather ran a newspaper... for Goebbels in Ukraine, right? That was extremely Nazi, pro-Nazi completely, spread around Nazi propaganda, and she's said that she's proud of the work that her grandfather did. She's never actually condemned the fact that her grandfather was a Nazi propagandist on behalf of Goebbels. And very recently, she was photographed at a Ukrainian gathering holding a Stepan Bandera, a Banderite flag, which they actually literally put up on her socials until... they took it down because people realized, oh yeah, this is some Nazi shit right here. So they know, they're well aware, and she's completely fucking fine with it. Like, she's obviously fine with it. Like, she doesn't care that her grandfather was a Nazi collaborator. She doesn't care that she stands up with Nazis. She doesn't care, right, about any of that kind of shit. And she's the deputy prime minister. So what that means is that if Justin Trudeau suddenly is incapacitated for whatever reason, she's the prime minister. Like, yikes. Yikes. Yikes, 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 yikes. Is it any small wonder why the Canadian government keeps training Nazis in Ukraine? Is it any small wonder that we keep supporting Nazi regimes? Is it any small wonder? Because we love them. Because we love them. We're a big fan, right? We're a big, big fan. Yeah. Like, Adam, everything you're saying is accurate, but it's like, that's how bad things have gotten. Like, that this guy's the voice of reason. Like, that's my entire point. Like, you seem convinced that it's gonna lead us down some weird little path, and I'm just saying, like, no, like, here's a guy who's actually standing up and pointing out some things that are patently true about what's going on in Ukraine. And that's how bad the discourse has gotten. That someone who's such a failure, someone who has obviously supported obvious Nazi actions, obviously throughout his entire career, obviously, is now sounding like the voice of reason. Like, that's my point. Like, that's how crazy it's gotten. Like, we're an insane fallen people. It's going to get crazier. Like, it's going to get crazier. So buckle up. Get ready for the madness. Like, get ready for the fucking madness. Like, we're gonna see like Kanye. We're gonna see like Kanye for president. Like, we're gonna see that shit. We're going to see like very weird and strange things happen. Things that you actually couldn't possibly imagine. Things that I cannot possibly imagine. Like, you are going to see people enter politics. You are going to see public figures who are going to make Donald Trump's rise to power look rational and normal. Like, oh yeah, of course, Donald Trump makes it. He was a reality television star based off of his real estate mogul fortune. went into the Republican Party and immediately became the president. That's a normal thing that normally happens in normal politics, right? That path is going to be considered like pretty tame compared to the crazy shit that's coming outside of the realm of any of your imagination. And it's going to happen so fucking fast. It's going to happen so fast. We're going to go through like a 4-year cycle, and every 4 years it's just going to be an insane, crazy nut job show. And states are going to start breaking off. And you're going to have to start to get to know who the governors are of independent states. And then there's going to be the water wars that happen. Like, all of this shit is going to happen all at once. And it's going to be a complete fucking crazy nut job show. And you can tell that it's happening because people back from 1991, right? People who are saying like, yeah, we should definitely invade Iraq, right? Are now standing up and they're starting to sound like the voice of reason. Like it's gonna happen real fast. Real fast. Have you seen what Michael Ignatieff wrote about Freeland in his book? Very telling. First of all, good to see you, Leon. I don't think I have. I don't go out of my way to read much of what Michael Ignatieff has to say, honestly. Good opportunity to say like the stream, guys. Please like the stream. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bells, hit the whistles. If you have $1, if you're looking around you and you look on your table and you see that there is $1 sitting on your table, think about donating $1 to the stream. Think about donating to my Patreon. It gets you in the Discord, and it makes me feel good about myself. Please consider donating, okay? Every little bit helps. If I can get 400 people to donate $5, I can do this full time. And if you want somebody to be screaming at politicians, if you want somebody to be actually organizing with people and actually getting out there and actually fomenting this fucking revolution that we 100% need right in front of our faces, well, maybe consider donating $1 to the cause. Thanks, guys. Transylvanian says, we in the EU are not much better off. Von der Leyen is also the grandchild of a hardcore Nazi, and so is the German chancellor. It seemed that Russophobia was passed down through their families. I mean, it's tough to get away from like having familial relations with Nazis, like in Germany. Like that's a tough. You know, how are you going to do that? Like the society was Nazi at one point, so there is that. But I mean, it's to me the fact that Germany remains like as a unified after the Nazi period, I feel like Germany needed to be broken apart, but it didn't get broken apart. In fact, I think that the Nazis basically just became NATO, is more or less what happened. Yeah, Danarchist, good to see you, bud. Everything all at once, except without the cool multiverse. Yeah, exactly. So much for Germans being ashamed of their past. Yeah, a chancellor. Exactly. Transylvanian, assume the concept of fake opposition means the establishment is purposefully having super heinous right-wingers like Tucker be anti-war in order to discredit the anti-war idea by association. That's kind of a 3D chess sort of a thing, like that I don't really buy into. Like, I don't buy into this idea because the society is too stupid for that. That the reason why Tucker is platforming anti-war people is because there is an anti-war sentiment and he wants those eyeballs on the screen. That's it. Really. Like, I don't really buy into this idea that we've got like a big super, like, I'm gonna put this forward to get to put this in, like it imbues them with a level of intelligence that they obviously don't have. Like really. That I do genuinely think that it really is. There's a bunch of people who don't like this war. Here's a guy who says he doesn't like the war. I want those people to watch my show. Dunk dunk. Like, 1 + 1 = 2. You know? And if it is being done, like, we'll put forward an anti-war agenda to discredit the anti-war idea and all that kind of stuff, well, that's extra stupid then. So what we're going to do is platform an anti-war agenda in order to discredit the anti-war movement, and set it up to blow up in our face when suddenly an anti-war movement actually pushes through and people expect the war to end. Like, it just seems like it's stupid in either case. And so and again, I think that what we're looking at, and I say this all the time, I've said this at the truckers, I've said this across the board, I think that leftists have a really nasty case of imbuing their enemies with an intelligence they don't have. Just imbuing them with something, and an idea of thinking or planning that they clearly don't have, right? That most of the time people are just moving forward with this good for me, money good money me good, more money me good, I good, I good for money, money good. And that's more or less how people are moving forward. That any kind of scheming or any of that kind of thing is so short term at this stage in the game. Like, we literally live in a society that refuses to do basic planning. Like literally basic planning. Just like sit down, draw up a plan, execute the plan. That's all gone. If it ever existed in the first place. So this idea that Tucker is we're trying to put up false opposition. It just I feel like it imbues them with a type of intelligence that I don't think that anybody in the nation has anymore, if they had it in the first place. Like, maybe there's like a little bit of scheming, or maybe there's that kind of stuff, but it really is just like, eyes look at screen at me, money good. That guy. John gets 43 envelopes with 1 loony in each. I'd take it. I posted that thing in resources about Ursula. Oh yes, I recall that. Yeah. Here, can I even bring that up? We had a bit of a debate as to whether or not this should be here, and it's turning out to actually be a real thing. That Ukraine hawk who heads European Commission has a Nazi pedigree. Look at that. You were right, looking to Z. It came full circle. Not Ukraine hawk who heads European Commission has a Nazi pedigree she does not want you to know about. Dude, it's so funny, man. Like, everybody's a fucking Nazi. Like, when I was growing up, you literally could just shoot a Nazi. You literally could just walk up, like, Indiana Jones was walking around with a gun just being like, Nazi dead, Nazi dead, Nazi dead, dead Nazi, dead Nazi. And the worst that happened was at one point when he shot a bunch of Nazis, his dad was like, I can't believe you killed them. Goodness me. Like, he's like C-3PO all of a sudden. But literally, there was just like a period of time where if you just like I played the game Wolfenstein. You literally walked into a room and just like, Nazis are dead. Nazis. It was made extremely clear to me from my society that it was perfectly acceptable to shoot Nazis. You want to shoot a Nazi? Great. Here, boom. Boom. Da-boom, 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 da-boom. And now everybody's a Nazi. Now everything is just like I'm supposed to respect these people. I'm supposed to think that these people are rational. I'm supposed to think that they're capable people who are intelligent. When the truth is, like, if somebody shot this person, I'd be like, great, we're killing Nazis again. Good. Like, I don't understand what we're doing here. Dude. And, like, this is the dumbest possible thing, man. This is crazy, dude. For us, it doesn't matter either way. All anti-war rhetoric is good because anti-war ideas are inherently popular with people so long as they're not propagandized into a war frenzy like after 9/11. Yeah, liberals are still polling second place. Good to see you, Tinker. What a disgrace for the NDP. Absolutely. Yeah, leave it to the private free market. Let chaos reign. But when they fail like SVB and Signature, bail them out. Exactly. Good to see you, Santora. Be sure to like the stream, guys. Be sure to like the stream. Yep, we've got an article here from Vice News. Under his wings, leaked emails reveal an anti-trans holy war. Under his wings, one lobbyist wrote in an email, the devil never sleeps. Another person sent in an email chain about the distinction between gender and sex. I pray for the second coming more and more. These missives are part of a trove of leaked emails between South Dakota GOP Representative Fred Douche. His name is Fred Douche. D-E-U-T-S-C-H. Douche, right? Am I right? I'm right about that, right? His name is Fred Douche. Douche? How am I supposed to pronounce this? Somebody help me out phonetically with this. His name is D-E-U-T-S-C-H. Deutsch? I'm sticking with douche. Fred Douche, anti-trans lobbyist, and other state lawmakers about anti-trans policies that are filled with language so deeply religious that at times the communications read like scripts from The Handmaid's Tale. It's the language, one expert told Vice News, of Christian nationalists who believe they're engaging in a holy war. The emails, which are available online for journalists and others to read and were first reported on by Mother Jones, include revelations about some of the ways that anti-trans lobbyists and elected Republicans like Douche and Idaho Rep. Julianne Young collaborate and strategize to write and endorse policies that directly target trans people on a national scale. The repeated notes about blessings and prayers, as well as sign-offs like God bless you and under his wings, proliferate throughout the emails, which frequently reference explicit religious motivations for targeting trans people. Know that many have prayed and are praying for you this day. Do not back down, nor should you be afraid. Know that the Lord is with you. The children of South Dakota belong to him. He is jealous over them. His jealousy be spoken forth in the House of Representatives of South Dakota today so that his children would be made safe. No, you are his representative today. Do not be afraid. Stand firm in what is right, wrote Fernandez Broyles, a lawyer and president of the Georgia-based Children and Parental Rights Campaign, which mobilizes against gender ideology in 2020. Broyles did not respond to Vice News' request for comment. The email was in response to a note from Douche about his proposed legislation. Today we do battle on the South Dakota House floor. Thank you for all your work and all your prayers, Douche wrote. Douche also did not respond to Vice News' request for comment. It is not surprising to experts that the language in the emails looks like that. It's the language of Christian nationalism. Thomas Lecoq, an associate professor of history at Grandview University, focusing on the apocalyptic religion and political violence. It is the language of people who very much believe they are doing God's will. And it is the language of people who are very much believe that they are engaged in a holy war. Explicit references to warfare pop up in the emails a few times. I prayed for you and the others supporting the bill today. Ask the Lord to put all of you in the armor of God for this fight, wrote Eliza Ray Shupp, a trans woman, in an email. Shupp, at the time, had detransitioned and was an anti-trans advocate. She's since retransitioned, renounced her ties to Christianity, and shared the emails with journalists. I fell prey to the belief that if I did what they suggested, I would be cured of my gender dysphoria. I was encouraged to confess my sins, ask forgiveness by Jesus, and turn my plight over to the Lord Jesus Christ. I was also asked to accept that my transgender status was a sexually motivated sin, and to cure myself by attending a religious 12-step program, which I did for approximately a year, Shupp told Vice News. Another email, also from Broyles, stated, Praise God! As we cancel every assignment of backlash against you and those who stood with you, may you sleep the deep sleep of one who has warred well for what is right. As bills passed or failed, the involved parties also imbued their responses with religious language. Emails from 2020 show right-wing lobbyists and politicians rejoicing after Idaho passed 2 anti-trans bills. One of the bills, which is still being fought by the ACLU, bans trans women and girls from girls' sports and is rooted in the myth that trans women have a leg up in sports, though evidence has consistently stated the opposite. Dear friends, wrote Young, the Idaho representative, I cannot thank you enough for your help and support. It is official. Governor Little signed both H500 and H509 today. Many tears and prayers of gratitude. The fight goes on. Young sent the email to nearly 30 people, some of whom have also lobbied against abortion, including douche. Young did not respond to Vice News' request for comment. Responses from lobbyists all over flooded in. God is with us, one person wrote. Another person wrote, I've been making a point to pray each day, asking that the governor would sign these bills, and those prayers have now been answered. Praise God, 5 smooth stones and an abiding faith in his justice. Good work, you guys, a lobby group member wrote. 5 smooth stones is a biblical reference that is often used as a shorthand for a situation in which an underdog, David, fights and defeats a much stronger adversary, Goliath. Stopping the existence of transgender people and the acceptance of trans people in the public square is to them some sort of religious imperative. This is the guy that we like. I wanted to use that voice. It's too late. Lecoq told Vice News. It's particularly fascinating that this group that has all this money, control in state legislatures, control of the House, they had a presidency, is acting like somehow they are David in the struggle. None of this is particularly surprising, and none of it is new. Today's Christian nationalists believe that America is an inherently holy Christian land, and that it's their duty to restore God's kingdom in order for Jesus to return. Part of this means that they think the country's laws, policies, and cultural institutions should reflect evangelical Christian values, Vice News previously reported. As a result, contentious cultural and political issues, like drag queen story hours and critical race theory, are perceived as satanic. Indeed, the devil came up in the leaked emails. I completely agree that it is Christian nationalism, although I tend to refer to it as religious extremism, Shupp said in an email to Vice News. Christian nationalists are a danger to the LGBTQ population and society in general, a genuine threat to people's lives and safety. They feign compassion while doing everything possible to strip us of our civil rights and ability to safely exist and participate in society. Shupp also acknowledged her own past efforts while collaborating with the anti-trans lobby. I take full responsibility for the manner in which I also acted in a harmful manner while participating in the secret work group. My actions were wrong, shameful, and harmful, and I was caught up in the moment of that misguided evangelical extremism, Shupp said. For that, I'm truly sorry for the harm I helped to cause. Trans issues in particular have been targeted with unprecedented fervor as of late. In 2022, anti-trans hate went mainstream, with onlookers asking if the escalation in anti-trans rhetoric is contributing to the beginning of a genocide. Hate groups, far-right pundits, and conservative legislators have zeroed in on trans people and spread harmful lies and stereotypes about what it means to be trans, often falsely framing trans people as a threat to children. The political and social environment in the U.S. for trans issues is already fraught. This year's legislative session has seen a record-breaking 470 anti-trans bills introduced in states across the country, including 3 trans healthcare bans that have already been signed into law. In South Dakota, Governor Christina Noem signed a gender-affirming care ban this year that in many ways resembles a previously failed ban. Vulnerable Child Protection Act, first introduced by douche in 2019, was discussed in the emails at length. They're not trying to protect children. They're trying to murder the transgender community, Lecoq said. Today, trans youth, especially black and brown kids, are struggling with mental health more than before. Families with trans kids are considering fleeing their homes in states that are hostile to trans people. And hate groups and extremists have repeatedly incited violence at drag shows. Numerous medical governing bodies, including the American Medical Association, American Psychological Association, and American Psychiatric Association, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, however, have endorsed gender-affirming care for minors. But that hasn't stopped several states from introducing or ratifying legislation banning gender-affirming care for minors. Like, literally what we are watching. We are watching a society that is deciding that here is the medical community, the professionals who have dedicated their lives to knowing what's going on, saying, this is what we should do. But I instead am going to clutch hold of the good book. The good book of Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ has to say in this, you know what? He doesn't actually have much to say about trans people, but we assume that Christ and Jesus would be against everything that trans people follow and listen to. Not that we read the book at all. So we literally just have a group of hyper stupid, moronic idiots choosing to ignore evidence, facts, science, and instead holding up a book they don't read. This is the worship of stupidity. This is the worship of stupidity. That we are collapsing as a people because we are fucking stupid. Fucking stupid. We're so stupid. We're so dumb. Will we ever find our way out of this shithole we've become? America! Like, we're so fucking dumb. I can't even begin to tell you how stupid I think we are. Like, and it's just annoying how obvious it's become. Like, the worst part about living in a society that is this fundamentally stupid is having bosses. That there are people who are like, I've got a lot of money and so I'm super smart. I don't need to listen to what anybody says. I'm going to just spend a bunch of money and do a bunch of stuff. Oh, it didn't work? Oh, well, I've got so much money it doesn't even matter. And we all just have to deal with that. Like, we're all here watching these moronic, rich, hyper-individualists act like total morons, being like, you could just not be like that. Like, you could just literally make any other decision whatsoever. Like, basically just listen to the people who do the job, right? That you're walking into a situation where there are people doing the job. You don't know what you're doing. Maybe inquire of the people who have been doing the job the entire time, what they feel we should be moving forward with. And we just have to watch them fucking be this way. Like, we just gotta we bear witness to their incompetence. It's incredible. Like, and literally you stand up and you're like, I have a pretty rational solution to a basic problem. Nah, you're just a worker. Like, for fuck's sake. Yeah, didn't that trans gamer have to leave Canada for Belfast? I think you're talking about, I forget her name offhand. That's so annoying. I reported on her. Yeah, but there was a, what was her name? That's so fucking annoying. Here in Canada, in London, there was a politically active trans activist who was running for office, and the police kicked in her door, stole all her equipment, doxed her, which I consider to be like a crime. Like, people should go to jail for that. Doxed her, so that, and she started to get harassed so much by fascists, i.e. the police, that she had to flee the country. And she's in Europe now. I haven't looked up on her in quite some time. Will the Orange Blob get arrested next week? No. Like, if you ask me, I think that this whole news story, you're talking about this news story that's been going around for some time about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's going to get arrested, you guys. It's coming. It's coming, you guys. Donald Trump's going to get arrested. If you ask me, I think Donald Trump's organization is releasing those rumors themselves. Like, it makes total sense. Keeps Donald Trump in the news. We all saw these AI-generated pictures. There's a bunch of AI-generated pictures going around the internet right now of Donald Trump being arrested. right? I think it's the Trump organization themselves that are putting this out because it keeps them in the narrative, it keeps them in the discourse, it keeps them at the front, at the top of mind, right? This is what matters the most in politics, is being at the top of mind. That if when people think politics, they think you, then you're winning. And Donald Trump has proven to be completely astute and knows how to operate politically. And he doesn't give a shit. Like, his entire pitch is that they stole the election and that we're now a renegade group of people and we got to take America back and make America great again and all this kind of stuff. And so, of course, he wants this narrative out there that says, oh, they're coming to arrest me at any moment. These corrupt, evil, underhanded people, they're coming to arrest me any moment. Here's a bunch of pictures. Here's a bunch of stuff for you to see. Yeah, they're coming to arrest me. Absolutely, they're coming to arrest me. Like, I absolutely think that it's the Trump organization putting this out themselves. Like, I haven't really seen any, like, who's the credible organization? Like, where's the credible news story that's actually saying, yeah, Trump, he's definitely getting arrested? And, like, why now? Why are they arresting him now? Like, for what? Like, for real? Like, for what? Like, and I just think it's, like, not gonna happen. Like, it's not gonna happen. They're not gonna start arresting their own, right? They're not gonna turn on each other yet. Like, we're not there yet. And just watch, I'm going to be completely wrong about this. Donald Trump's getting arrested right now, you guys. That's what's actually happening. Donald Trump's getting arrested right now as I'm like, they're never going to arrest Trump. That's never going to happen. Like, literally, they're locking him in the cage right now. Someone right at the bottom of this chat right now is like, dude, search this up. They're arresting him. Yeah, that's it. I absolutely... But I wouldn't be surprised to find out at all that, like, Donald Trump's like, yeah, say I'm getting arrested. I'm getting arrested. Let's make a bunch of AI pictures and send them out of me getting arrested by Joe Biden. Make sure Joe Biden's arresting me. Like, yeah, theocracy was the goal for millennia preceding fascism, yeah. Well, I guess fascism co-opted theocracy. I mean, fascism and theocracy are like bedfellows. They do fairly well with one another. Anemone, my partner is trans. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine being in the United States right now, dude? Like, I have a friend whose partner is trans. I work with a trans person. Like, I feel like the dumbest thing that has been said about the trans community, if you ask me, is when people go like, where are all these trans people coming from? These trans people weren't around before. I blame the internet. And I'm like, yeah, dude, these trans people were everywhere. They just, like, didn't say, hey, I'm trans, because we used to kill them, right? We used to beat the shit out of them. So they would just be like, yeah, I'm a man. Definitely, I'm wearing men's clothing for sure, because, like, it's a survival strategy. Then they go out to the club, and they were called cross-dressers, right? Like, they would go out to the club and they would dress like a woman, and we would all be like, oh, that's kooky and weird. And then the police would go do a raid, right? Like, there's all kinds of fucking shit. And then we all just get to be like, I didn't see any of these trans people around before. It's because your dad used to shoot them. Like, yeah, so scared of the coming years for her, for sure. Canada's such a scary place. I'm hoping it won't be as bad as America. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, dude. Like, we will. Like, we'll see. There's a lot of... I think the number one thing that's going on is that there's, like, a lot of mistrust of our institutions. That people are running out... People are losing faith in the institutions that we have. And they're right to do so. Like, our systems are not responding to us anymore. Not really. That we could be building a much better society than this. We could be building, like, a very reasonable, rational... Like, the idea that we are afraid of robots. The idea that we're like, robots are going to come and take your job and that's a bad thing. Like, that tells you exactly how stupid we are. That... We should be over the moon about the automation of our society. We should be over the moon about it. But we refuse to actually agree that people shouldn't be homeless and everybody's needs should be taken care of. We just refuse to do it because we worship money and we worship the individual. And if, you want people to have a handout? Get something for free? No, you got to suffer to get money, and that's the only thing that's valuable. Right? So it's just overwhelmingly dumb. And we're too dumb to figure this out. Like, it's just brutal. Yeah, it's a scary time to be trans. I believe people will stand up for trans rights. I mean, we're likely going to go through a period of federal conservatives. And what these federal conservatives will do is work to privatize the healthcare system. And don't be surprised at all if part of the privatization of the healthcare system will come with denial of service to trans people. Like, don't be surprised by it at all. I don't, and we shouldn't deny it. Like, we're literally seeing conservative politicians buddy up with Nazis. Like, we are going to do this. Like, it's going to happen. And there's no within the structure of the system, there is no force whatsoever that is actually interested in preventing this. That the Liberal Party is as soft as it gets. Like, all of these parties are essentially pro-imperialist, pro-corporate, pro-Nazi, right? It's just to what degree? Like, to what degree are you willing to double down on it in order to maintain the support of your base? Because all that's left in politics now is your base. Most people don't vote anymore because they know that the system no longer responds to them, right? That's what happened in the last election here in Ontario. Most people didn't vote because they understand the system no longer functions. It doesn't work on behalf of the people. No one ever will be elected again that will actually respond to the people. And we all fundamentally know that's the truth. So we're all ending up just being workers, biding our time until the system falls apart so much that we can no longer interact with it with any degree of safety, right? And then we all know what's going to happen. Yeah, stay in the cities, avoid small town Ontario. I mean, there's a bit of that. The U.S. empire is cannibalizing its allies in an attempt to slow down its own decline. Europe is being sacrificed as we speak. Canada may be next. I mean, Canada has always just been like a resource depository for the United States. Like, we have two things going on in Canada that makes it so that the United States more or less just ignores us. I'll say three. First is our total subservience, right? Like, we are completely, all of the political parties are bend the knee to the American fascist system, put no fuss up whatsoever. If the Americans come up, just say, yes, sir, whatever you need, sir, absolutely, sir. Under no circumstances do you pretend as though Canada has an alternative model or an alternative path that is somehow separate from the military-industrial complex, right? So complete and total fealty is step one. Step number two, we don't actually have a big population, right? We've got like 37 million people. Like, we have almost nobody lives in Canada. We don't really pose any kind of significant threat. We're spread out all across the place. So if the United States just wants to push into a place and take over a mine or something, they can just do that, and that's not a problem. If they want to send naval boats into our waters and just steal a bunch of fish and like rob some fisheries and then leave, they'll do that, and that's fine. And we might put up a fuss in some like IMF board or something like that. We might have like a trade negotiation deal or something, but the United States will basically just like be like, yeah, fuck off, and that'll be and we'll go, you're right, sir, I'm so sorry, sir, you're right. And so there's not enough of us to actually like put up a fuss about. They're just going to bully us the way that they always do. And then the third one is that we don't have a culture. Like, we're just like a bunch of scrabbling monkeys. Our culture is literally like Tim Hortons, which is owned by America now. Like, there's no such thing as Canadian culture. That like the closest we got is like that band where the guy died of cancer recently. Come on, we all know what I'm talking about. I forget his name, right? That's how irrelevant he was. He doesn't really matter. So there isn't really like a Canadian culture. So the Americans can just sort of bully in and be like, you're white. Like, we own this place. And so we're not really at all a threat. Like, they don't need to sacrifice us because we're willing to sacrifice ourselves. We don't really have anything to fight for. We don't have a culture. We don't really own anything or control anything anyway. Like, and as long as we just keep paying fealty to the United States, great. Like, we're golden. Like, we're golden. And when economic conditions become critical, fascism finds fertile ground. You bet. What constitutes a small online commentator? 1,000 followers? What constitutes a medium or large interview commentary? Are you justifying interviewing McGregor because they can't get John M? I mean, at this stage in the game, I just think any anti-war voice makes sense. Like, just any anti-war voice at this stage. And I mean, the fact that that anti-war voice is not getting platformed, and anti-war voices are not getting platformed generally, is enough of a reason. Like, I would talk to McGregor. If McGregor would talk to me, I would talk to him. Very true. My guess is Poland will directly intervene in Ukraine this year. Yeah, I mean, we'll see about that. Like, we'll see about that. I feel like there is sort of a prevailing hope, although the Americans are doing provocation drills very close to Russia. So, but like, I don't really understand what Poland would seek to gain from directly but again, everyone's so fucking stupid, right? Like, there's so much stupidity in the conversation. Yeah. They are sending DU weapons to Ukraine. You'll see radiation levels go up, probably. Mr. Moon, good to see you, bud. Like the stream, everybody. Everybody, like, share, subscribe. Give me $1, right? If you've got $1 floating around your bank account, if you got $1 on your counter, right? Put it in the Patreon. So support leftist voices. Support the content creators, especially you regulars. If you've got $1. Here in Australia, we've just had neo-Nazis turning up to anti-trans protests. Yeah. Like, and it's a hysteria. Like, it's, like, how many trans people are there even? Like, how many trans people are there really even? There's not even that many of them. They don't represent a significant portion of the population, and yet they're being, like, the fact that we're having a political conversation about this at all, the fact that there is any legislation being put on the table at all, to me, tells me that, yeah, this is fascism that we're watching for sure. Like, it's such an insignificant issue. Like, it's significant to the trans people, obviously, but to put this at the top of the agenda, to act as though this is the thing that we absolutely must be talking about. And there's this, do I still have this? I hope I do. Yeah, this is one. Nebraska hasn't passed a single bill this year because one lawmaker keeps filibustering in protest of an anti-trans bill. I will burn this session to the ground. State Senator Michaela Cavanaugh. I love that quote. I will burn this session to the ground. I love it. Yeah, I plan to stay in Toronto. My parents have a house in Scarborough we could go to. Yeah, that's what's happening, right? People are beginning to... There's this person I know who she broke up with her boyfriend because it was a terrible situation, and she's basically living with her parents, and you know, she wants to find a place to live. She wants to live a life, right? She's a young lady, but like, she's stuck, right? She's stuck. Like, what's she supposed to fucking do? You know, like, she's not gonna find a place. Like, rent is $2,000. Like, it's crazy, right? So she's stuck with this, like, crazy shitty commute, and it's terrible to watch good people go through this bullshit, right? Good people who should be getting supported by their society, who should be like, oh, you want to go back to school and you want to study law and you want to do these things. You want to go and pursue all this kind of stuff. Like, you should be supported. Everybody should be supporting this type of person. But no, get fucked. Stay in your abusive relationship with this guy, right? Or be homeless. Like, it's a brutal society that we've erected, and we seem happy about it. Like, we just seem so pleased as punch that we live in this brutal society. Oh yeah, John, because you asked what McGregor thinks now of the Iraq War. As of last year, he said American troops do not intentionally murder people. What a joke. What a total joke. Like, come on, dude. Like, we have the reports. The CIA, at least, is walking around. Like, maybe he frames it in, like, a very specific, like, army troops aren't doing that, right? Because you got to be thick to not actually point out that, like, the CIA was sending death squads throughout Afghanistan, just like literally shooting people in the streets. Like, shut up with this. Like, if you're pretending like American troops are not intentionally murdering people, what a joke. Yeah, Julian Assange exposes this. Transylvania, I'm not sure about that. I'm usually quite pessimistic. I don't think NATO has what it takes to directly fight Russia, and I think they know it. Poland is posturing. Yeah, NATO doesn't have what it takes. Like, it really does come down to this, guys. That when Russia rang the bell and said, we need more bodies, those bodies showed up. That Russia rang the bell, and its own people stood up, grumbled a bit, right? Grumbled a bit. Approval rating dipped from like the high 80s down to like the low 70s, high 60s. There was some people who fled, but like hundreds of thousands of people heard the bell and showed up. Well, you think if NATO did that? You think that that if NATO rang the bell, that these people, especially like the French, think you're gonna get a lot of French people standing up? Think you're gonna get a lot of Spaniards standing up? You're gonna think you're gonna get a lot of Germans standing up? And actually, you think hundreds of thousands of people are gonna stand up to go to a war, to join hands with the Nazis that we've been funding this whole time? Like, you actually think that's serious? You think that's really going to happen? And even if they did, we've got reports coming out of the United States. The United States military says that 70%, 77% of the population is not ready, is not capable, rather, that they can't enlist them, right? So this is my favorite part about what's going on in American society, that we have so effectively poisoned and destroyed our own people and created a system based entirely on chaos that we've destroyed everyone. That they can't actually, they're not suitable for fighting. And the entire system is based on fighting. And so we've destroyed everyone, and it's destroyed the entire structure of the system. Like, that's how fucking stupid we are. That we can't even acknowledge, like, oh yeah, we need bodies to keep this war machine going, and so we better have everybody be healthy and ready to fight and war ready and all of that kind of stuff. No, we're not even doing that. Everybody's just fat, drug-addled, because everything's chaos, and nobody knows, and people can't get off the couch. Everyone's obese and overweight. Like, it's insane to believe that we're actually going to get into a direct conflict with Russia. Because when Russia rang the bell, 200,000 people showed up. You think if America rang the bell, 200,000 people would show up? No. And if they did, 77% of them would be too fat to put on the equipment. They wouldn't be able to get into the tank. Like, they will go to Poland into war, not all of NATO. I understand the rules say for NATO members, but they won't join in. Well, but this is kind of a thing. Like, that's why I'm sort of skeptical about this idea that Poland is actually going to do it. Like, I actually think it's possible that, like, Hungary and Poland and the surrounding states will try to eat little pieces of Ukraine, right? So, like, they're not going to do, like, a full-blown, let's go to Kiev, let's send people to the front line, that kind of thing. But rather, instead, they'll just, like, take over a small section of Ukraine. They'll just be like, oh, this section is now part of Poland. Like, that I could easily believe that. That you wouldn't have to convince me very hard. But the idea that Poland is like, send troops to the front line to fight directly against Putin 100%, I just don't see it. I don't think that that's serious, and I don't think that's going to happen. That is a type of escalation that NATO itself would look at Poland and be like, no, you're not. What are you fucking talking about? That if Poland wanted to get dejected and ejected from NATO, that would be a surefire way to do it. Like, I think that would be the likely outcome. And I don't see where's Poland's win in all of that. Like, how does Poland win? By, like, sending its troops to the front line to fight against Putin? Like, what's the W for Poland? Way more likely to me is that Poland will be like, oh, here's a fertile field or like a mine over here that, like, no one's going to kick up a fuss if we just claim it and just, and maybe NATO would be like, that is inappropriate, Poland, and you shouldn't have done that. And Poland will be like, we had the right because 200 years ago, right? And there'll be like that ridiculous conversation that always happens, right? And NATO and Poland will put it to bed because they don't want to bother with it. And then Poland will have like a piece of Ukraine, right? Like, as I'm talking about it, I'm literally like, let's just bring up Google Maps and just be like, yeah, let's take a look at it. It's just like, it's, to me, it's like, that's believable. Like, Poland could just like roll in and be like, yeah, this province here, see this little line here? This province here with Lviv, that's now Poland, right? And like, that would be a pretty substantial chunk of territory, but like, yeah, just Lviv is part of Poland now. And the people of Lviv might be like, brr about it, but like, what are they gonna do? And like, what's Putin gonna do? Nothing. Like, he's not gonna do anything about it. What's Ukraine gonna do? Nothing. Right? What's Romania, Hungary, Slovakia gonna do? Nothing. Right? What's Belarus gonna do? Nothing. What's America gonna do? Nothing. Right? So if Poland just decides to roll in, surround Lviv, and just be like, yeah, this is part of Poland now. This is ancient traditional Poland land. Yep. Or they decide this province with like Lutsk, right? And they're just like, yep, Lutsk, this Koval, all this part of Poland now. You know, and same story with like Hungary, with Romania and Hungary. Like, Hungary could just be like, yeah, this province here, right? Uzurharvs, Mukachevo, this is part of Hungary now. Right? And you could actually see like a bit of a kicking off where people could just suddenly be like, Romania would just be like, oh, well, why don't we just take this territory and like this territory over? Like, and you'd have like a kind of a breaking up of Ukraine, and like Belarus would like send in troops to kind of claim this territory a little bit. And like, you'd have like little pieces of Ukraine, because that's essentially what Russia has done, right? They're claiming a chunk. Right? They've got a pretty strong military force, and so they can kind of claim a chunk of this, which is the Donbass region, and pull it off and be like, this is now part of Russia, right? So this chunk, which at one point, by the way, to remind everybody, was a part of Russia not that long ago. And so, like, that's convincing. But the idea that Poland is going to actually get into some kind of direct confrontation with Putin and Moscow, I don't think so. I think I won't be too surprised that as we move forward, that Ukraine just starts breaking apart because it lacks the military and administrative capacity to maintain itself any longer. And like, so this part becomes Poland, and this part becomes Hungary, and this part becomes Slovakia, and this part becomes Romania, and this part becomes Moldova, right? Like that all of this just kind of become, and Ukraine just gets progressively, so this part becomes Belarus, until finally you literally are just left with like, and the Russians just keep carving off more pieces until finally you're literally left with just Kiev being Ukraine. And then there's some kind of dust up and it's all resolved, and then Ukraine ceases to exist. And Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Moldova, and Russia, and Belarus are all bigger. That to me seems to be like the most likely outcome. And that like Russia and Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Moldova, and they'll all sit down and come to some sort of agreement about what the general borders look like. But I would be very surprised. I would be very, 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 very surprised if Poland suddenly like pulled the trigger and was like, we're going to war with Russia. Because when has that ever worked? Like, when has that ever worked? And like, NATO's not going to let them do that. Like, as far as NATO is concerned, if Poland were to carve off a piece of Ukraine, like, Ukraine's not a NATO member, right? They're and officially they're independent. Like, they're not part of anything, right? And so, like, if you ask me, I think the most likely outcome in all that is that all of these pieces will break off, and then you'll be left with this like one kind of chunk that Russia will insist remain neutral, because they want a buffer. Like, they want a buffer between them and NATO. And I do think that like the West is getting more and more skittish about actually getting into some kind of conflict. That they are starting to sober up a little bit because they are like, there are nukes, you know, like there are fucking nukes. Watson, good to see you, bud. Jade, good to see you. Be sure to like the stream. Isaac, good to see you. Danarchist, I don't know if I said hello, hello. Be sure to like the stream, guys. It really does count. And if you've got $1 jangling around your pocket, please think about donating. Please think about donating. Keffels. Keffels was the name of that trans activist. That's right. Jade, hi. I've met many people that superficial people assumed were gay but weren't, or women that looked manly but were cis. These anti-trans bozos trusting themselves to be able to tell is a scary thought. Yeah, for sure. I think she's a bit of a Kanye figure, pathologically desperate for attention for whatever reason. Neoliberalism has brought on this distrust, for sure. Well, I mean, think about it, dude. Like, one of the major pillars of the capitalist death cult is the worship of the individual, is the worship of the self. Like, that means that you can't trust anybody else, right? If you worship yourself and everybody is worshiping themselves and the ideology is look out for number one, right? And it's just business, right? And all that kind of stuff, then you fundamentally cannot trust anybody, right? Like trust is just not part of the deal. You can't buy trust. You can't sell trust. There's no money in loyalty, right? Like, and all of these people, all of the billionaire class, like Mark Zuckerberg, I think is the most explicit one, but they all have some kind of betrayal narrative. There's a moment in all of their stories where they betray everyone for money. And like Mark Zuckerberg literally was like, yeah, we'll all start a business together that I own and then cut you all out of, right? Like they all do this at some point. And you don't become a billionaire unless you're willing to do it. And so it's all tied in to the worship of the self and the worship of the individual. You can't trust anybody. And for God's sakes, for 40 years, we've been like, the government is the problem. The thing that's really causing problems for everybody in the world today is the government. That we have to get rid of any collective ability to come to an agreement and exist in a land full of chaos and mistrust. And that's what we've been saying for 40 fucking years. To the point now where we literally have a major political movement throughout the United States, libertarianism, which fundamentally are saying, freedom is slavery. Selling yourself to a death cult is freedom. Like, this is how we talk. This is what we think. We are very stupid. And it's just going to continue going down that way and just become more and more aggressive and more ridiculous. And, like, at least it's beginning to sort of trickle down into, I've got CTV News, younger Canadians' views of our country and its institutions getting progressively worse. But when you actually look at the data, even though the satisfaction level is going down, it's still like 64%. Canadians are literally still like, yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with our institutions that I have to sell my entire life to that are obviously structured to betray me. Like, the fact that it's going down is pretty telling, but like 64%? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you actually fucking kidding me? That 64% of respondents are like, yeah, this is great selling ourselves to total bozos who hate us. Like, we're so fucking weak. Isaac, the vortex created by the U.S. collapse will draw Canada to the center. Like, do you mean politically? Like, how do you mean, Isaac? Draw Canada to the center in what way? Tinker says the protests in France are cool, but they haven't been able to change the politician's mind, meaning for some reason they can't surround the halls of power or their homes. Yeah, like, I think that the ruling class in France is like, yeah, we've seen this before. This is incoherent rage. We'll just wait for this to blow over, and there won't really be a meaningful consequence. That if it was getting to the point where there was actually meaningful consequences, then the military would come in. And if it got to the point where there was like meaningful consequences still happening from that, then NATO would step in and the United States would send troops, right? Like, France isn't going to fall. Like, and can you imagine if it did? Like, if France actually fell, it would be wild. It would be fucking unbelievable. That now we're talking about a disc. There's a whole new layer onto this whole like collapsing society narrative that I'm talking about. Like now it would be like happening in fucking real time. You would be having like people actually doing some crazy shit. But I think that the ruling class of France is more or less just being like, yeah, well, it'll blow over. That they're making a whole fuss about it, but it'll blow over, is what they're hoping will happen. And only time will tell. Jade says, Scarborough has pockets of radical Christians. If you explore around Toronto eventually, you'll find the neighborhood for you, though. Yeah. Tinker, Canada is center right wing. It's not left. But the reason why cons are not in power is because NDP and Liberals have made a deal to support each other in Parliament. Yeah, that's correct. I would argue that Canada's a right-wing country. Like, I don't think, like, the NDP are pretty much, like, I consider the NDP to be, like, a moderate right-wing party. Like, that they have, like, a red Tory kind of way about them. Like, the red Tories were conservatives that came in and like, did massive government spending. Literally tripled the amount of spending in order to erect, like, education systems and shit like this, right? So, like, the NDP are, in my view, like, they're not left. They're not on the left spectrum. And I think they're actually probably more right-wing. I don't really consider them centrists. Like, they're pro-imperialist, for sure. They uncritically believe everything the CIA has to say. They sort of believe, like, they espouse a belief in taxing the rich, and they espouse a belief in social programs, and they espouse these sorts of things, but that doesn't make them too much different from, like, a red Tory from the 70s. They don't espouse a doctrine of worker control. They don't espouse a doctrine of reducing the power of the capitalist class. They refuse to say the word socialist. They refuse to say the word capitalist. They refuse to talk about class at all, right? I generally think that they are more or less a right-wing party, and that the only reason why they kind of have the glimmering appearance of being leftist is because of the character of their leader, but also because of how far to the right the society actually is. Like, the society is extremely far right at this moment, where, like, literally our conservatives are glad-handing and openly shaking hands with neo-Nazis. Our current ruling party is openly funding Nazis and has as a deputy prime minister the granddaughter of a Nazi. And, like, we're extremely far to the right. And there's going to be major consequences for it, of course. And there's no real, like, leftist opposition that exists. So, I mean, I could somewhat be convinced that the NDP are sort of centrist, but center-right would be the farthest that I would ever put them. That, for some reason, is the police. Yeah, protesters are brutally beaten and gassed when they're not threatening politicians or government buildings. Yeah. I've seen those videos where the police are overwhelmed and running away, but I think you're right. If the protests cannot bring fear into the minds of politicians, then its effects are limited. Yeah. We'll see how it goes, man. Like, it is just starting, right? Like, and it could quell. Like, it could go down. But, like, it pays to remember, like, the Occupy movement lasted months. And that's what we could be looking at. I remember when this is from Ligon Disease. I remember when a Muslim friend of mine who lives in Scarborough mentioned these Christian folks offering free bed to passers-by. Is this them? I have no idea, dude. Tragically hip. Yeah, Gord Downey. Yeah, that's Canadian culture right there. Jim Carrey. Like, there's Canadian culture. The USA will steal the fresh water. Yeah, that's the first on their list, for sure, dude. Well, I actually don't think they're interested in stealing the fresh water. I think they're more interested in poisoning it. Like, it's what they're doing. You know, like, you think about what it is they're actually doing, and they're not stealing the fresh water. I mean, Nestle is definitely stealing the fresh water as much as it can, but that's like Nestle's MO. But, like, if they're not stealing the fresh water, they're poisoning it. So, like, It just seems to me like there's no real agenda to it, you know? But again, the United States doesn't actually plan anything. Does Celine Dion count as Canadian culture? You are goddamn right. Near, far, wherever you are, I believe that my heart will go on. You are goddamn right. You want to hear somebody who is actually Canadian culture in a serious way? You're talking about Anne Murray. Absolutely. If you go into rural Canada, you go across the prairie provinces into Alberta, you start talking about Anne Murray, you are going to get a lot of old women who are so happy that you're talking about Anne Murray. Compton says, you know what's weird? Dude, I do know what's weird. Lots of things. All this anti-woman and anti-trans legislation is doing brain drain in red states unless people are enrolling in college. Yeah, doctors and nurses are about to become unicorns. Yeah. Like, this is what's so fucked up about what's happening in the states, is that the states that are most inclined to declare independence and most inclined to be libertarian are the ones that will destroy themselves doing it. This is why I call it a worship of stupidity. These people are not, they don't care about facts. They don't care about reason. They don't, it's not in the discourse. It doesn't matter to them. These people are literally saying to each other in documents that we can see, Jesus Christ is so proud of us this day, fellow brothers and sisters. We passed legislation to really make a bunch of minority people who Jesus Christ himself would ally with as terrified as possible. I know that Christ said, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the world, which is why we need to destroy them before they can inherit the world from us. Like, this is how these people talk. Like, that's not exactly how these people talk. Let me be more serious about how these people actually talk. That, praise Jesus, fellow brothers and sisters, today is a great day while we enforce what Jesus Christ will say to us when he comes down from the heavens and performs his mighty rapture. We'll say, look, my Lord and Savior, what we have done. We have cleansed the land of the sully and the despicable. We have created a world that is pure for your feet to come down upon. Forgetting, of course, that, like, your Jesus Christ created these people. Like, this is the absolute incoherence. The absolute, like, stupidity. There's just no other way to talk about this anymore. The absolute fundamental stupidity of these people. Like, actually giving a shit about this. While their infrastructure collapses, while everyone falls into poverty, while there's drug addiction going across the entire place, while their society obviously transitions into, like, a fascist war economy. These people are literally like, you know what we really need to spend all our time being super concerned about? You know what Jesus Christ would really want us to be super concerned about right now? Whether or not girls are wearing pants. Like, whether or not boys are wearing dresses. That's what we need to be super concerned about right now. That we gotta watch out for these pedophile groomers. No, I'm not talking about the Catholic Church. No, I'm not talking about Bill Gates and the billionaire class. I'm talking about the 1 in 1,000 trans people that exist in our society. Like, they're so fucking stupid. Like, they do not think about the consequences of their actions. Like, they don't. And should the consequences of their actions rear up and bite them in the ass, they'll all say, this was the will of the Lord. That we saw the will of the Lord written in the scriptures, and he said that it was up to us to get rid of all of the trans people, even though it didn't say nothing about it in the scriptures. But let's say that he did, because we don't really read the book. But it's so we chased away all the trans people, and that meant that nobody wanted to live here anymore because we were a terrorist fascist state. And so we've collapsed into poverty and ridiculousness, and we have a living standard that's worse than the country of Cuba. But that's fine, because this is all the will of the Lord Jesus Christ. And he will be sure to... And here's my favorite part. Here's what they do. This is the great flip, right? That while we suffer here on earth, we're building up treasures in heaven. That these people are a death cult, and that's what they say, and that's why it becomes a death cult. Because they literally say, we are making this place worse, it is getting worse, we are suffering, but it's all okay, because when we die, everything will be better. And my response to them has steadily become, can you get on with it? Like, if you're so looking forward to it, can you just get on with it? Really save us a lot of trouble. Like, it'd be really great if you could all just drink the poison and move on. Yeah, the PPC vote is what might keep the cons from getting a majority. That is actually true, though. Like, this PPC vote's not nothing. Like, 5%. And, like, there's a reason why the conservatives have been glad-handing with Nazis and stuff. Because they want this PPC vote. Right? Like, and if they could get that 5%, if that 5% went into conservative town, then that's a conservative majority for sure. No TikTok kitties yet? Yeah, none. I hope you guys are doing. Oh my God, you just reiterated far left propaganda. Well, I am I'm a communist. Like, I believe in the far left. Like, sort of an odd position. Like, oh no, far left propaganda. We should take care of people and have housing. The far left is the same as the far right. Maybe senior women, but mostly appreciated outside Canada than inside. Support any anti-war voice. Last year I pointed out Gonzalo Lira was anti-trans. Alright, I don't know what you're about, Adam. You gotta be in your bonnet today, bud. Transylvanian. As someone from Romania, I can tell you Romanians still haven't forgotten that part of Ukraine called Bukovina was once part of Romania. We still have songs about it. Yeah. There you go. There's your push-in. Grinning. I'm hopeful that Ukraine gets divided up between Poland and Russia. Kiss the Ukrainian identity goodbye. I mean... Yeah, what an interesting cultural moment. Like, what an interesting cultural moment. I don't really know what to think about that. Like, certainly what's happening in Ukraine is a tragedy across the board. Yeah, and the Hungarians think similarly about Zakarpattia. Yeah, of course. Like, it's always that way with warring European nations. Like, this place has always been at war with one another, dude. Like, I'm sure that France has claim to Belgium. Sure that Germany thinks the Netherlands should be part of them, right? Spain and Portugal probably have a thing. There's probably like a little dispute constantly going on here. Andorra, for sure. Who owns Andorra, right? Absolutely both Spain and France look at Andorra and go like, yeah, we both own that. Like, for sure. Like, this is the character of Europe, that they're always doing this constantly 100% of the time. That Czechia and Poland, probably like this piece right here, right? There's probably like this Ostrava. This Ostrava, 250 years ago, Ostrava was a part of the Polish nation. Like, it's for sure. Like, for sure. It's how they always are. I think it would be a very bad outcome. Poland, especially encroaching further east, would be dangerous for many reasons. Yeah. You know, you're not wrong about that. Like, the idea that it would be controlled. Like, to sort of counter what I was saying earlier, like, the idea that it would be controlled is silly. Like, can you imagine? Like, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Moldova, they all start carving out pieces? Well, what happens when their militaries start to engage with one another? Right? So suddenly, like, Poland is, like, these guys are all kind of like, it's all a clusterfuck? Like, it's not going to be clean. Right? And then on top of that, even if there is, like, a orderliness of any sort that takes place... Well, who's going to abide by any of this stuff? These guys have, like, NATO has shown pretty clearly that it doesn't give a shit about any of the stuff that it says. Like, this to me is the big backfire of what's going on today with this Ukrainian crisis, is that it's been made obvious to the rest of the world that NATO cannot be trusted. That NATO is going to stand up and say whatever, and then it's going to do whatever it wants. And so you can't believe anything it says. And if you can't believe anything it says, well, then you're never going to negotiate with it, right? You're never going to make a deal. You're never going to move forward thinking, well, NATO said this, because NATO doesn't do what it says it's going to do. It's untrustworthy. And this situation in Ukraine has really proven that that's the case. I don't know about Russia being, but Belarus sees the scenario as very threatening to them, of course, yeah. I suspect that Belarus does, absolutely. I mean, some of the stuff I've seen Lukashenko say during this period of time has been very forceful. Like Lukashenko makes Putin look pretty calm, pretty tame in comparison. Like, I've seen Lukashenko saying things like, yeah, we will kill those Nazis that you're funding. Like, he's being very forceful in some of the interviews that I've seen. So the Belarusians, I think, if Poland started to get pretty active, I think would also get pretty active. The entire situation there is precarious. The best case scenario is to remain contained, yet Russia takes its historical claims and the rest of Ukraine has a reasonable, neutral government installed. Yeah, we'll see about that. We really will. Like, we'll see. CR Strifey, good to see you, bud. The war in Ukraine is a proxy war for regime change in Russia, of course. The poor people of Ukraine is just being leveraged. Yeah. Yeah, anyone who has a problem with Keffels should read her last Bird app thread and try to find compassion for those who claim autism, neurodiversity, addiction, and were victims of police violence. Absolutely. What happened to Keffels was absolutely unreasonable. And the fact that it's all just been swept away. That, like, the police literally kicked in her door and doxed her and she's been forced to flee the country. Like, brutal. Very, very brutal. Didn't Bad Empanada expose that person as completely unserious? What's up with all the streamer drama? Why should we care? No, the reason why I care, Transylvanian, is because a Canadian citizen, like this is my position on Keffels, right? Like, she's not a communist. She sort of flirted with communism, but she kind of revealed herself to not know that much about it, and that's fair because I think most Canadians don't, right? That her position is really as a trans rights activist, which I think is a perfect position, especially for someone who is trans, to defend. What concerns me is that a Canadian citizen had their door kicked in, was doxxed, is being harassed by fascists and Nazis to the degree where they have to flee the country, and no one seems to give a shit about that. Like, that's fairly concerning to me. That there's a narrative that just exists in Canada, that anyone can just have their door kicked in, be doxxed, start getting harassed by Nazis, forced to flee the country. That can happen to literally anyone. Literally anyone. That should be very concerning. And it's all been widely reported. It's all there for anyone to see. And it's just like, yeah, this is a normal society. This is the normal society that we live in. Yeah, definitely something worth fighting and dying for here. There's no such thing as a Canadian culture, yeah. I mean, we had like a little glimmering moment of a Canadian culture because of World War II. That there was like this little moment where Canada was like sort of a unified force and we were like, yeah, rah, rah to war. And we were all like proud of what we did in World War II. But that's all gone. Because all of the like sort of social gains and all of the sort of societal improvement that we had post-World War II has all just been eaten away and we're all just Nazis again. So... yeah, Anne Murray got mentioned in Blame Canada. Exactly, dude. Canadian culture, Will Arnett, Catherine O'Hara, Keanu Reeves, Ryan Stiles, Colin Mockery, Tom Green, John LaHolly, John Candy, God bless, Rush, yeah. It's, I've seen people say that God will fix climate change if that's his will. Yeah, exactly. If it's God's will, then the coasts will rise. And if it isn't his will, then everything will be fine. And we don't need to think about anything or use our brains at all. Be sure to like the stream, guys. Just like the stream. Okay, Adam. If you say so, bud. Like, I don't really care. U.S. studies way to ensure all bank deposits if crisis grows. Let's talk about the SVB shit. Be sure to like the stream, guys. If you've got $1 jangling around your pocket, you go right ahead. If I can get 400 people to donate $5, if I get 4 people to donate $5, I can do this full time. And if I do this full time, I'm going to start going to City Hall. I'm going to start going to meetings. Like, for real. Like, I'm going to spend my time getting in these people's faces. But all of my time is ate up by going to fucking worthless capitalist jobs that are pointless. Like, literally every job that exists. All these guys that are walking around being like, just get a job. Like, just get a job destroying the civil society. Just get a job destroying ourselves. Like, brutal. And once the libertarians realize there is rampant debt and drug abuse, they're going to blame it on minorities. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, that's what they do. Like, the United States is desperately worried. How shall I phrase this to say it properly? It is inevitable that there will be a large-scale banking collapse. Like, it's an inevitability because the entire system is structured on a worship of money. The entire system is structured on nothing. The people who are in power are obvious grifters and obvious frauds. It's plain for anyone to see. You've got to really shut your brain off and not be paying any attention whatsoever to think that these guys are capable or even interested in being capable. And how they're going to, quote unquote, ensure, right, is that they're going to jack everybody's taxes. That's all they have left. Like, the only way that they have to actually keep this ball rolling and keep this game going is that they need to somehow infuse the system with actual capital. They can't just keep printing money because that's creating inflationary pressures that are chewing away at the consumer base, right? So all they have left, and you can see that in the bills that are being put forward, that we're seeing bills get put forward by the Republicans that they want to raise, they want to have consumption taxes as high as 30%. Like, really think about that. That the Republican Party is seriously tabling bills to raise consumption taxes by as high as, I believe it's 30%. Like, that's incredible. That's incredible. And it's all being done to make sure that these fraudulent institutions that are completely disinterested in doing anything meaningful continue to exist. Like, that's how insane we've gotten. Like, the financial system in the United States is fraudulent. Like, it doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't actually create anything. It exists for its own purpose. And what it does is it consumes real assets or ties up real assets and creates false markets with these bullshit with these bullshit systems that are fundamentally based on nothing. If you listen to Michael Hudson talk about it, he straight out says that they're parasticizing the system. And what's so hilarious is that they openly say that like houses and things like this are actually the real economy. They actually use that word. They say real economy. And that sort of assumes, right, that sort of implies that what they're doing is a fake economy. Because it is. And so if what you're doing is eating up real assets and the real economy to support a fake economy, it's only a matter of time until the whole thing collapses. And what they're trying to do is ensure that when the fake economy collapses, it takes the real economy with it. That's what they're trying to do now. And if you want to see the clearest possible example of this, right? It's the derailment in Ohio and how literally nothing was done about it. Literally 0% of anything was done about it. Versus when the banks collapsed, who got the bailout? Where did $200 billion go? Did $200 billion go to Ohio to repair the rail, to ensure that safety standards are met, to act as compensation for the people who are affected, to pay for the Medicare and the medical care of the people who are affected? Did $200 billion go to that? No. $200 billion went to worthless parasites who bet it all on crypto and lost. That's what's happening in America. And we're constantly asked to think that this system has credibility. We're constantly asked to believe that we should be doubling down on this. It's absolutely asinine. It's absolutely asinine. Marcus, I have to catch up on the VOD, but what I missed. Oh, let me just talk about the next 2 hours, bud. Marcus. Like the stream, bud. Like the stream. Look at Twitter's new algorithm. I've been getting recommended N451s on my timeline. What's an N451, bud? Search Rand Corporation. Yeah, the Rand Corporation, 2019, overextending and unbalancing Russia. What's that? Yeah. My favorite is the Rand Corporation's thinking through the unthinkable, thinking through war with China, where they explicitly talk about how they would go to war with China in the Southeastern Sea, right? Like, it's all of this is being discussed in the open, right? All of this is being discussed in the open. That's what's crazy about it, is that the United States empire, who are obviously acting like the Nazis in the world, like very obviously. Like if you live in Latin America, Africa, East Asia, Russia, the Middle East, without a doubt, like you don't really see it. It's like it's like that Office meme, right, with Pam, where corporate needs you to see the difference between these two pictures, and one's the American flag and the other one's the Nazi flag. And she goes, they're the same picture. Like, that's how the entire rest of the world views America. And we're all just supposed to continue taking this seriously. Like, we're all supposed to be like, yeah, this seems credible. This seems like a credible nation that we should definitely continue to support. What a wild world we live in, man. What an absolutely wild world we live in. Breaking. Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz officially resigned this morning, 2 weeks earlier than anticipated. The billionaire returned last April to try to stop Starbucks United workers from growing. Back then, there were 6 unionized Starbucks. Now there are 290 plus unionized stores. You know, Marcus asks, is there any significant news regarding Xi and Putin's meeting? I think that that'll be tomorrow. That the meeting happened and the reports are being written now, and so that'll probably come out tomorrow. And the only thing that I've seen is a very brief clip of Putin and Xi saying farewell to one another, and Xi saying something along the lines, which was captured on film, of what was the exact statement? It was something along the lines of, we are going to go through something that hasn't happened in 100 years. And the thing that really struck me about how the two bid farewell to one another was how dedicated Putin was to ensuring, like, I don't want to say this badly, but like he really did look like a suitor saying farewell to the woman he's going after as she's like going off in a carriage. He really was like, goodbye, like catching her eye, putting his hand down. She would turn and look, and he'd be like, bye. Like he really was like dedicated to sticking the farewell, like the long goodbye, you know, and that really, like, I really do think, and we'll see more as the reports come out, but I really do think that like Xi Jinping and Putin understand that they really got to come together. Like that, if I was to base my opinion based on that entire clip, and I'm not, because that relationship has been developing for quite some time. The two of them really do understand that they have to come together and they've got to grab each other's hands and they've got to be cohesive. They really do understand that. And, but I mean, China is in the driver's seat. That has nothing to do with Putin, right? Like, and again, like what makes Putin a fascinating figure right now is that if it was up to Putin, and I think this is what puts Putin in a position of weakness, because China must be aware that if it was up to Putin, Putin would have integrated with the West, right? Putin was part of the G7, at one point the G8, right? Putin applied to NATO. Putin was trying to get in with the West. Like, that was Putin's, like, that's the post-Soviet kind of legacy, that the reason why the Soviets move away from communism and move away from the Soviet Union is because they want to integrate with the West. And while simultaneously concerned about military encroachment, they're trying to get tied into the IMF and the World Bank and all of these institutions. They're trying to move forward over this. Russia took over Saudi Arabia's #1 oil supplier to China during the visit. Not a coincidence. Yeah. And that China does have to view, like, Putin's pivot towards China has to be aware that Putin doesn't really have anywhere else to go, right? That, like, the position that Putin finds himself in is a position of weakness. That Putin is in no position to negotiate. He's in no position to really strong-arm terms, right? Because he's got nowhere else to go. And he can't cut China out of anything because China's in everything. And so, yeah, I think Xi knows that Putin would be instrumental in ensuring energy and food supplies in the event the West imposes sanctions for a Taiwan reclamation. Yeah, I think that that's part of it too. And like, the truth is that the two need each other now more than ever. That now is the moment when, like, forget about any of your isms. Forget about any of your, like, well, they're Soviets and they're, or not Soviets, but they're capitalists and they're this and they're that. Forget all of the isms. Nazis are knocking on their doors. That the American force, which is a Nazi force in the world, is knocking on the door of Russia, is knocking on the door of China, and the two of them are looking at each other being like, yo, should we defeat these Nazis? Hey, we got to defend ourselves against these Nazis, eh? And all of the isms and all of that is just out the window. And everybody is just like, yep, we got Nazis. We got to watch out for these American Nazis, because that's what is happening, and that's what is up. And it looks to me, I'll be curious to see what the propaganda has to say. I'll be curious to see what the Chinese and probably the Russian propaganda has to say about it. But I suspect it'll be a message of unity. That's what I expect to see. That they're going to come out and they're going to say we are unified. We are going to put forward a front. We are going to work together in collaboration and cooperation in the spirit of the socialist enterprise and all of that kind of stuff. Right? I'm sure they're going to do all of that, and they should. They've got every reason to do so. That the Americans represent a very clear and present danger. Like, without a doubt. And the Americans are, like, frothing at the mouth. They've lost their minds. They've lost their minds. They've lost the capacity for reason. And they're not interested in reclaiming their senses. Like, America is going to fall into 100 years of humiliation. It's going to fall into civil war. It's going to fall into these things. And what China and Russia is hoping happens before that occurs is they're just trying to mitigate the damage to themselves. That's really what it is. Eric, good to see you, bud. Be sure to like the stream. Be sure to like the stream. They own most of the algorithms, own the sites we visit and apps we use. They have our data of behavior. Yep, and they're going to use it against us until they take everything. Yep, that's the goal. And they will. But John, Putin's solution is to let the Western power just rob their resources. Yeah, exactly. I think people overstate the power imbalance in that relationship. Yes, China has a bigger economy. Russia needs their trade. But China also needs Russia's natural resources, transport corridors. Yeah, it's a mutually beneficial relationship, right? For sure. And I think you're right that, like, and I've said it before on this channel, and I'll say it again, that, like, it doesn't do for Westerners, including myself, to really criticize what these Eastern nations are doing, like, especially China. That China knows what it's doing and is more masterful on the world stage than me, certainly. Like, China knows what it's doing, and China's, all I can observe from how China operates is that it wants to do win-win diplomacy. And it seems to me like that win-win diplomacy extends to Russia. And that the seriousness of the situation, like the fact that Xi Jinping and Putin are meeting in person shows you the seriousness of the situation. That it's not being negotiated by ambassadors. It's not being negotiated through other channels. It's not an envoy or something. It's literally the leaders of the nation getting together and probably laying out like the conversations that Xi Jinping had and Putin had. I would love to hear them. I would absolutely love to hear them. We'll never see them. It'll be 20 years until those conversations are released to the public. But I would absolutely, like, talk about, like, high-level theater. Like, talk about a high-level theater. Hearing what those two were saying to each other. Because those would be some of the most frank conversations that you could possibly hear. Like, I suspect that Xi Jinping and Putin, at no point were they mincing words with one another. Like, that's the tenor of what I have been seeing out of these societies. That the society that's full of children is us. Like, we're the ones that are bullshitting. We're the ones that are constantly full of shit. We're the ones where our leaders are just delusional nightmare capitalists that have no idea what's going on. Like, those guys are literally like, we have to be very upfront and frank about what is happening because there is an existential threat. We are fighting for the future of our people, and they know it. And they fucking know it. Like, that, if that doesn't sober you up, nothing's going to sober you up. If that doesn't get you to stop being like, Jesus Christ is coming down from the heavens at any moment, we don't need to plan or create any ideas or thoughts because it'll all come to fruition in the mighty hand of Jesus. Right? If that doesn't get you out of that stupor, then nothing's going to do it. But John, I was told that the U.S. coups are over when the great power theory is no longer a valid way to understand how states operate. I also told that Ukraine conflict is just a classic Russian imperialism. Yeah, exactly, dude. Transylvanian, and some people even argue that China needs Russia's superior military tech. It's a symbiosis more than anything else. They have complementary strengths. Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested in seeing what happens between China and Russia as the United States collapses. Like, the collapse of the United States is going to be wild. It's going to be really, really wild. I haven't actually thought about it in a couple of weeks now, but I'm sitting here thinking about it right now. And, like, the dismantling of the military, like the military-industrial complex, is going to break apart, and little fiefdoms and kingdoms, maybe not so little, are going to arise under, like, Raytheon, right? Like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and these organizations, they're going to claim certain sections of the military-industrial complex as their own, and the United States military will become privatized. That they'll turn into their own sort of military organizations. And mercenary groups already exist. You had Blackwater, which changed its name to like Z or X or something like this, because everybody started to realize, like, people started to know about them. And they understood that the best way to operate is clandestinely, and it's bad that people know the name of Blackwater, and so they changed their name. And but they exist and they're around, and they're a private military organization, a private mercenary group. And as the American military loses its credibility and loses its administrative power, and as the administrative authority and the administrative power of the federal government begins to be seen as no longer relevant, and as independent states, as they begin to balkanize and declare their independence, begin to erect their own military forces, private military forces, I think, are going to, and like, we're talking like private military forces that have like jets and like missiles and shit. It's going to be like private mercenary groups with high level technology tied to private factories that are being run in like island nations and shit. Like, we're talking like true supervillainy. Like, we're talking like crazy shit. As the entire Union begins to fall apart, and America enters a period of chaos, 100 years of humiliation without a doubt. The people of America will live in poverty, will live in absolutely grinding conditions. The best of us will be working at Starbucks, right? Like, the best of us or I shouldn't say the best, but the most well-positioned of us will be working in cafes and stuff. Like, and people, like, if you're like a lawyer, you know, that kind of position, you know, you'll have like your tech bro guys and all that kind of dumb shit. And but you're looking at like a collapse of the financial system, and the collapse of the financial system will carry with it a devaluing of the Union. We're already facing down like a pretty significant civil war. Like, the war that's being waged against trans people right now is the shot across the bow for the rest of the culture, right? And we already have like a private prison system. We already have huge segments of the population that are operating as if the Union has already fallen apart. So what begins to happen when military personnel are no longer getting paid? What begins to happen? Like, the entire thing is going to break up and fall apart. And that doesn't mean that China and Russia are going to suddenly feel safe. That private military forces and private mercenaries can still fuck people up and still go into Southeast Asia and still do all kinds of crazy shit and still steal resources, right? That'll still be a big part of it. Like, if Lockheed Martin wants to get access to a lithium mine and needs to blow the shit out of the Congo in order to do it, they'll send in their private military forces, right, and claim a mine, and you'll have the Lockheed Martin cobalt mine, right? Because Lockheed Martin will be a corporate force that exists outside of the scope and scale of the nation-state system. That it'll just be a corporate entity of its own design, just like how the CIA will operate and does currently operate. The CIA operates as its own institution, doesn't really care about America. It operates for its own interest and its own benefit, and and all of these institutions are going to begin to operate that way, right? And so it's just going to be absolutely wild to watch as it all unfolds. And so to loop it back around to how I got started on this, as that process of collapse begins to happen or begins to set in, what will the relationship between Russia and China continue to be? And how will China continue to act in the world? How will they begin to fall for the same imperialist traps? Will they begin to fall for the same absurdist ideas of their own greatness and all of this? Only time will tell. C.R. Strifey, at the first hint of the fall of Western civilization, I will abandon everything and move to the woods. I mean, I think that's something you have to set for yourself, C.R. Strifey. Like, what does that actually look like? What is the quote-unquote fall of Western civilization to you? Like, I don't know. There's a little part of me that gets to thinking, like, I should get some wood. Like, I should get some lumber, get ready for, like, if the power goes out. Like, that's a big one, right? If the power goes out. Eric says, before I forgot to mention, I started posting new videos. I did an update with my COVID journal on my channel. Good for you, bud. Good for you. Honestly, it's good to do that kind of thing just for yourself. Like, I've been going through like a real midlife crisis right now, and I know that it's absolutely a midlife crisis. And I've been journaling a lot, and I find that to be very, very useful. Just every day I wake up and I write a little something, and every night I write a little something. I didn't do it this morning because honestly, I don't know. I wish I had have, but I'm finding it to be very, very helpful. It's very crystallizing, and it's helpful to get ideas off my mind and onto the page, right? And I feel like that's more or less what you're doing, right? Even if it doesn't take off and become a big thing, right? Do it for yourself. Do it for yourself. That's essentially how this channel got started. I was doing it for myself, and then people started watching. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's neat. Isaac says, John, I'm working at H&R Block, preparing taxes, and I noticed that most people who were given CERB during COVID-19 are being asked to pay it back by the CRA. Yep. Like, we live in a fraudulent society, right? Like, I know people who have had to pay the CERB back. Like, I know people who are paying that back. I'm waiting for my own message. I'm waiting for them to tell me that I'm going to have to pay it back. It'll probably bankrupt me, but like, they don't give a fuck. Meanwhile, we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars to prop up illegitimate systems. Like, it's we don't give a fuck. Like, we worship money. We think the people who have money are gods, and we're too stupid to realize anything different. And I'm not surprised to hear that. Like, what was sort of surprising in all of it, honestly, during COVID, is that they did the CERB in the first place. That should tell you how terrified the capitalist class actually was, right? That they were terrified of COVID and they didn't know what to do, and so they reached for the basic income idea. It completely worked. It was 100% successful, and now they're having to pay it back. And instead of looking at the people who made all the money over COVID and saying, hey, we're going to raise taxes on you in order to pay for the money you obviously collected over this period of time, they're telling the people who got the CERB that they've got to pay it back, which was never part of the deal. I actually feel like if Canadians were able to come together, they would actually have a pretty decent suit against the government. That the acceptance of the CERB was never part, like, you're basically trapping people in a scam is what you're doing, right? That you're saying, like, oh, here's this money, it's free because it's a crisis, here you go, and then after they take it, you say, oh, by the way, that was actually a loan. Right? I think that most people actually have a fairly strong legal case against the Canadian government if people were able to organize and come together and actually say to the Canadian government, like, no, you don't get to say that the thing that you were giving out was a loan after. That's not how this actually fucking works. And it isn't how it actually fucking works, by the way. But we live in a fascist society, so that's probably not going to happen. Ben Jorgensen, if only the unionization movement at Starbucks was mirrored on the scale as the rest of the workforce. Yeah. I think if the U.S. collapsed, China and Russia might start to drift apart. That would be my concern. I mean, usually, projects are actually unifying, right? And we've always known this. Like, the railway system was always seen as a unifying project. That they needed that railway to be built during the colonial period because they understood that it was unifying the nation, and that it was completely possible. Like, we've got records of John A. Macdonald saying, like, we got to get this rail built because they could just declare their independence over in British Columbia. They could just be like, yeah, this isn't part of Canada, get fucked. We're just like, they could just do that. But if we get a rail in there, then people will actually be like, okay, there's something to this, and we can get goods from this, and so we should stay connected to the federal system, right? And China and Russia have a similar sort of relationship, you know, that the rail system that exists throughout Russia and connects to China and goes into Europe. I think Russia sees that as valuable, you know, and so unless something happens where China stops producing goods and Russia stops benefiting from the production of goods and the trade starts to degrade somehow, the only thing that could really start to get in the way would be just greed. Just straight up, just like the classic capitalist greed. But China and Russia don't have the same culture that we have. They don't, like, China doesn't worship money. It doesn't worship the individual, and they're not stupid. Like, that they've got a very different structure going on. Like, and let me be clear, right? Certainly China values money, right? They value money. They see money as useful. They understand it, but they don't worship it. They don't worship it in the way that we do. And certainly China understands that individuals need to be taken care of and all that kind of stuff, but they don't worship individuals. That the cult of the self doesn't exist throughout China in the same way. And so the way China is going to go and the way Russia is going to go, if they get some breathing room, will be different. They're going to develop differently. And one hopes that they develop peacefully with one another, and they just look at one another and think, yeah, we could just keep trading resources, and there's no reason for us to get caught in this manic idea that, like, because really when you think about, like, what is the beating heart of the crisis that we are facing geopolitically, it's this American idea that America runs the place, right? It's this American idea that says we actually own the world, and if you want to operate, then you've got to do so with our permission, right? And that's such a stupid idea. It can't be overstated how stupid it is. And I just think that China and Russia don't have the same ethos. That, like, America says we're the greatest country in the world, and so you need to be like America. And China says we're the greatest country in the world, and that's great. Like, we're the greatest. Like, you don't need to be like us. In fact, we don't want you to be like us because we're us, right? That's the Chinese ethos. And they want their own country to be big and strong because they think they're great. And they don't care if you're like them. And they don't have this same ethos of, like, America needs to claim everything. Everything needs to be America. Everything, they got to look at a map, and the whole map needs to be painted the color. It's like they look at it's like they're playing a war game constantly, right? It's like they're looking at a map, and their map is, and their color is blue, and they got to cover, the map has to be all blue, right? And China is just like, what are you talking about? Like, that's dumb. Like, we don't need to do that. It's completely disinteresting to us. And the game that China is playing is a deeper game. They're playing a much deeper and much more intricate and much more interesting game, with an understanding that, yeah, we've got money, and certainly money matters and has value and is important, but it's not like we're not gonna sacrifice our society for money the way America is. Right? We're not going to destroy we're not going to allow a financial system to come and dominate the real economy. Like, we're not going to do that. That's stupid. We're not interested in being stupid. We want to live in a society that's sane, right? And they're building institutions to hopefully pass down generation by generation this ethos that we need to be building a real economy and we need to be doing real things. Whereas, I mean, America's entire ethos is to build this fake economy based on the worship of themselves and come up with no solutions whatsoever. Eric says, well, so far I have 7 subscribers. Not bad for a person who didn't post anything for 3 months. Yeah, that's true, dude. Getting 7 subscribers while not posting for 3 months? Pretty solid. C.R. Strifey, wasn't it always a loan, though? Nope. Yeah. No, it was never pitched as a loan. It was pitched as a loan to the business class. That it was said to the business class, if you want there was another thing. I forget what it was, like the CRSU or something like that. If you want this will be a loan, right? But to the working class, it was said, no, this is something that we're extending out to workers because you are being told to stay home of something that's not your fault, right? That was always the reasoning. It was never pitched as a loan. Like, I know that if it was pitched as a loan to me, I might not have taken it, right? Marcus Smith, the problem with the bait and switch with taxes like that is the unpaid taxes are charged with interest. My Muslim friends believe interest is haram sin and would need to repent in that situation, yeah. But John, is a dictatorship. On a serious question, I hear a lot of liberals and conservatives saying that China interferes with our election all the time. Do you know where that conspiracy comes from? Yeah, that conspiracy comes from CSIS. Like, it's our own institutions that are putting forward that conspiracy because it benefits our rulers want us to dislike China. It's fairly straightforward. Like, and it's coming out of CSIS. It's coming out of the conservatives and the Conservative Party. And it's coming out of the liberals. And it's even coming out of the NDP. Because all of them believe uncritically what CSIS says. That there was a CSIS report that said, we think that China's interfering with our elections. And I was like, do you have any evidence? And they were like, no. Because they didn't have any evidence. It was all just smoke blowing up the ass. And you got like shitty reports of like, a Chinese embassy brought some old Chinese people to a voting booth. And that's interference with our election. And this is a big scandal that everybody needs to talk about. It's like McCarthyite style hysteria. Like it's insipid. It's stupid. Like it's really deeply stupid. But it benefits the conservatives because the conservatives want to whip up their own base, and their base is xenophobic and Nazi, right? It doesn't actually benefit the liberals that much, but like there's a reason why they're not actually investigating it, though, right? There's a reason why nobody's actually willing to investigate this. And the reason why they're not willing to investigate it is because they all know it's bullshit. There's no actually evidence. CSIS? CSIS is Canada CIA. That Canada has its own CIA, and it's CSIS. Canadian Security Institution of Security. I forget what the acronym actually stands for. And so it's CSIS. Like it's just more bullshit. And they're doing it on behalf of the military-industrial complex in order to whip up anti-Chinese sentiment. So that when we go to war with China, everyone will go, God, China bad! Because we're so stupid. Right? Like, we're dumber than the people in Idiocracy as far as I'm concerned. Like, if you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy, one of the things that really struck me about the movie Idiocracy was that the leadership in the movie Idiocracy was actually interested in solving problems. They were just too stupid to be able to do it. But they were smart enough to understand that there was a problem and that problem needed to be solved. They didn't know how to do it. And so they were also smart enough to understand that this guy might be able to solve our problems, right? And that actually, in my view, makes the people in the movie Idiocracy much smarter than us, because the people in the movie Idiocracy understood, A, they had problems, and B, those problems needed to be solved. And sure, they didn't know how to do it because of their overwhelming stupidity, but at least they understood the problem had to be solved. And were seeking solutions, right? That stands in stark contrast to our society, where we don't acknowledge that there are problems. We don't acknowledge that there are problems. And if we do acknowledge that there are problems, we're completely disinterested in solving them. So my argument is that we are actually stupider than the people in the movie Idiocracy. The infrastructure in the US is literally collapsing or burning down, yeah. And some of it is just like civil war. Like, you know why all these train derailments keep happening? All of these train derailments keep happening in the United States because it's still Civil War rail, right? They haven't they haven't invested in new rail. Like, I have literally seen video of trains going over rail, and they're going like this. They're literally going like, like they're literally doing that. Like, if it's almost as though the ruling class has said, how do we maximize derailments? Like, they're literally putting like 10,000 ton vehicles over rail that was built in the Civil War. It's a mixture of Red Scare type fear-mongering and old-fashioned Orientalism. Yeah, like, never forget, yeah, Transylvanian brings out a good point. Just good old-fashioned racism, man. Just good old-fashioned, we don't like Asian people, right? I know that I've got a regular viewer who's pretty vocal in the Discord. I don't want to out you, but it's absolutely the truth. That and that contributor has really opened my eyes wider to the absolute truth of the anti-Asian racism that exists throughout Canada. That and that why this anti-Chinese rhetoric is so dangerous is that every single time we do it, there's a spike up of Asian hate crimes that happens, and it's like almost a 1-to-1 correlation. That every single time we whip up rhetoric against an Asian nation, well, suddenly people are really going after Chinese people. And the Chinese people that I interact with here in the city of Toronto are hardworking, studious, intelligent, good people who are just trying to get by and do a good job, you know? And it just seems to me like to be like completely emblematic of our stupidity. I dislike you because you were born in a place that was different than the place I was born in. Your skin is a slightly different hue than mine. You speak a different language than I speak, and that makes sense because you were born in a different place, but I dislike that. Like, I can see having these positions if you were like 12. Like, if you're like 12, I could be like, yeah, okay, like, you need to grow up and we gotta educate you. But like, if you're like a grown person still thinking this racist shit, like, big yikes. Israeli private firms have boasted to undercover journalists about interfering in more than 30 elections worldwide. Yeah, nobody gives a shit. Includes hacking, sabotage, automated disinfo on social media. Yeah, nobody gives a shit. Like, nobody cares. Like, my thinking is, why would China give a shit? Like really and actually. Like, why would China actually try to do that in a serious way? Right? And I'm not talking about, like, an embassy rented a van and took old people to a voting booth. Like, why would they bother? Right? Like, China doesn't think about our electoral system in the way that we do. Right? Like, we have a real, like, we just got to get the right people in and the right people do the right thing. Right? China's like, nah, your system's fucked, bro. Like, your system's fucked, bro. Like we actually have a systemic analysis of the society. We have a systemic analysis of your system, and your system is always going to spit out capitalists and fascists. That's all it's ever going to spit out. And the only time anything remotely socialist can happen in our society is if this structure is threatened enough by an upswell of public support, well, it'll begin to respond to that for a period of time, right? Like that's essentially what happened with our healthcare system with Tommy Douglas, right? With the NDP, back when the NDP was actually socialist, is that they were responding, that the system responded to the existence of this organization and then steadily infected and dismantled it from within, right? So that the NDP basically just became another corporatist entity and has nothing to do with, they won't even say the word socialism anymore. And and so if you've got a system that works that way, if you've got a system that will only respond to the needs of the public when the public come together and threaten the system directly, why would you bother? Like, why would you bother trying to mess with the system and get your own guy in, right? Who cares? Doesn't matter at all. Transylvanian, there are apparently thousands without power in California due to a storm right now. Breaking news, these infrastructure failures are only going to get more and more common. Yep, absolutely. Jade, I find that most simple and the most extraordinary are genuinely good people because one is too stupid to be malicious and the other is too smart to not want to help people. Marcus says, I can see having racist positions like that if your country was invaded by people from a specific race. Yeah, I mean, that you are getting into some tough, deep human shit there. But, like, that's not the American story. Straight up. Like, that's not the American story. You know, like, we're racist against the people who we committed a genocide against. Like, we're like, black people are inferior, which is why we can enslave them, and they're better off being enslaved. Like, that's how we are. I had a conservative denying hate speech because causing hate crime. Yeah, big surprise. The conservatives are like, free speech. I should be able to do the Nazi salute and say the N-word. That's this. But if you talk about communism, then we got to send you off. Command Genius had a debate with a Nazi, and to be honest, they have some good points. You might want to clarify that a little bit with me, Command Genius. Nazis rarely have good points. The only reason Nazis are debating is to either turn you into a Nazi or to confound you and waste your time. They're either playing a game with you or recruiting you. And by good points, I mean they have some good evidence. Again, I feel like you're going to need to have to expand on this. Transylvanian, a take I'm hearing more and more from reactionaries across the West, but especially in the US, is that these increases in anti-Chinese hate crimes are good because it will dissuade Chinese people from coming to the West. And that somehow will mean China has less opportunities to steal Western tech. Imagine the idiocy of thinking that China is now... that China now is overtaking the West because it stole it. Yeah, and like... basically, what they're saying is it's good that we're going to be isolated and that no one will talk to us and no one will want to come here. That's good for us. Don't worry about sounding offensive, Command Genius. Like, if you look up whitest states in the USA and the safest states in the USA, the lists match up. So? Like, so what? Yeah, I suspect that a bunch of racists would be less violent to each other, right? If you expunge black people from your society, usually by lynching them, which is how they did it, right? And purge your society, you're not going to have acts of violence, right? Like, that's how it works. And if you don't have, like, pockets of an oppressed society that needs to fight for food, right? Because you've purged them from your society or incarcerated them in your military-industrial complex system, right? Yeah, you're going to have less violence, right? Like this is like essentially what this Nazi is trying to convince you is that white people are safer than black people and that black people are inherently violent, right? That's the claim. But the system of violence is a white supremacist system. And white supremacists are not going to go after other white people. What they're going to do is they're going to go after black people, and they're going to create systems of poverty. They're going to create ghettos. They're going to redline them. They're going to incarcerate them. They're going to send cops after them. They're going to commit acts of violence to the black people and create a feedback loop. So yeah, of course, more white states are less violent because they've removed the element of their violent ire against, right? The white people are not being violent against anyone because they already hung them and got rid of them and threw them into jail cells. And the little Nazis trying to convince you that, oh, white people are just less violent. No, there's just nobody to be violent against. That's all. You've already got rid of the people that you were violent against. They're already gone. You already expunged them. And you're a white supremacist, so you're not going to go after other white people, right? Like, it's just Nazis being Nazis, dude. Like, it's just Nazis being Nazis. Now, don't worry about it, dude. Look, we're all here to teach each other, and we're all here to learn. I'm glad that you brought it forward, honestly, Command Genius. I 100%, and I'm putting this out here for everyone. If you listen to a Nazi and you think that Nazi is making any sense, you fucking tell me, and I will set you straight. Nazis cannot be trusted. They are rabid dogs who should meet the fate that Indiana Jones would give them. And if they are talking and you are listening and thinking that they make sense, then you need to be set straight. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. Marcus, Vietnamese surviving off the hospitality industry for retired Vietnam vets is a pretty trash result of global capitalism. Yeah. Isn't that hilarious, dude? It's brutal. It's brutal. Oh yeah, Command Genius says, I've been seeing more Nazi propaganda online lately. I think it's capitalists trying to convince the youth. Yeah, the alt-right pipeline, as it has been given, is the alt-right pipeline is the connection to the video game industry. That we have pretty credible sources showing that like the CIA is involved in this process, and the funneling of kids basically through a video game system. Like you think of like Call of Duty, like all of these war game shooter games, right? And the whole goal is to get kids into these like war games and these war type of thing, get them into this like Nazi style rhetoric. Because who's going to be the best soldier? Well, the soldier that actually kills someone, right? And who's going to be the most likely soldier to actually kill someone? A Nazi, right? So you set the stage as a training ground and as a vetting tool to find the most psychotic people, and then you approach those people and you try to get them enlisted, right? And you're trying to get them funneled into this far right pipeline to fuel the military-industrial complex. And video game culture is 100% like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a ramping up of it, because the military isn't meeting its quotas anymore. People aren't enlisting. That is, in my view, the true face of the collapse of the American empire. That Gen Z, millennials, Gen Z, and the next generation will simply not enlist. And that the military-industrial complex is getting older, and it's aging out. And they're simply not going to be able to field soldiers, because people are seeing what's happening to the soldiers that are going and returning. People are seeing the kind of life that these soldiers endure. People are seeing these soldiers being abandoned by the military-industrial complex, by the veterans. They're seeing these veterans get abandoned. They're witnessing it. Like, veterans are going on to high-level television shows and saying outright, that we are being abandoned. Like, that's having an impact and it's mattering. And a big reason, I think, why the military-industrial complex feels like it needs to really ramp up and now's the time to strike out is because they know that they're going to go into a major decline. People are not enlisting. They simply don't have the bodies. And the only people who are enlisting are psychos. And so you're ending up with a military system that's just psychotic and just full of gamer kids that are too stupid to know what's going on. And so it's just going to stop functioning. It's just not going to work as a system anymore because it's not rational. It's not capable of operating in a rational sort of a way. And it doesn't have the manpower. It's not going to have the manpower to actually get anything done. Like, it's... and so, of course, I think there's been a big push. Like, why do you think they made another Top Gun? Like, they're feeling the pressure. They're feeling the pressure, and the American people are not interested in cooperating. For good reason. I don't know why anybody would join the military right now. I think it'd be the worst mistake of anybody's life. Transylvanian poverty and lack of economic opportunities is the biggest factor that increases the likelihood of crime. Historical discrimination and redlining creates a correlation between poverty and race. Non-white areas are also policed to a disproportionate degree. And when you police more, you also find more crime. Rich people living in gated neighborhoods commit different kinds of crime. Yep. Isn't that the truth? That's actually a really good point, Transylvanian. That rich people aren't going to do like petty theft or sell drugs on the street corner or do burglary, right? They're going to steal $1 billion from a bank, right? That's how they roll, right? That they're going to commit fraud. Like, that's what they're going to do. They're going to do quote unquote white collar crime. So, you know, if all you care about is like some street kid who, you know, lives in a broken down house and whose parents have already fled and he's basically left all alone, and all you're going to care about is that he's selling a little bit of coke on the street, right? And then has to get into a fist fight to keep the money that he gets from a guy who's trying to steal it from him. Like, if that's what you care about, and you don't care about like Bernie Madoff, right? And of course you don't care about that because you're a fucking Nazi, right? So if you don't care, like, when white people do crime, it's that's good. Those people should have, like, white collar crime is really a victimless crime when you think about it, right? And like, yeah, like if you're a Nazi, this is the way you think, because, you know, might makes right, and the people who were victimized by those bankers, they just should have known better. They just should have seen it better. Command Genius. I saw a video of a TikTok of a Slovakian kid showing a pro-Nazi documentary to their class, with classmates agreeing to the documentary. The comments were praising the kid for showing it. Yep, Nazism is real, everybody. Compton. Phew, damn. Is this the heel turn arc? Hey, man, we're all working. We're all trying. And especially somebody like Command Genius. Like, Command Genius, I know you're young. And so I know that your mind is open to lots of possibilities, and you're just sucking in information, and like, Nazis can be persuasive. Like, they really can be persuasive. Like, there is a reason why that people like Jordan Peterson and Shapiro and Crowder and all these guys are successful, and Walsh. It's because they're being persuasive, and it takes a little bit of skepticism and a little bit of thought to sort of see through their nonsense and to recognize how stupid they actually are. That, like, all you have to do is just ignore the fact that we incarcerate black people and put them into ghettos, and you can say what you like. And that's usually how it works. There's usually just one little thing. And this is what I like to call the linchpin. Right? This is why I don't like to flirt around the edges of lots of conversations, right? Sometimes I do, just to, like, you know, fill time and like, because it's fun. But if I'm in a serious conversation with somebody who wants to be taken seriously, I am exclusively and only interested in discussing the linchpin of their argument. And most reactionaries and Nazis, the linchpin is something that they're ignoring, or something that they're obfuscating, or something that they're omitting. And in lots of cases, it's stuff like, yeah, we just round up black people. Like, we literally just send cops into neighborhoods and just round up black people. Like, you think that's not violence? Right? And of course they don't, because they're racists who think that rounding up black people is good, because they're Nazis. Right? My friends from every country in East Asia have had anti-Chinese hate from people on the street. It's unbelievable how proud the ignorant are. Yeah, dude. That's been my experience doing this stream, is that it's the stupider a person is and the less they know, the more confident they are in their stupidity. That it's the people who understand that they don't know what they're talking about, or that they don't know anything about the subject, those people are actually usually quite humble. Like, people will come in here and they'll be like, hey, maybe this is offensive, but I wanted to ask this question. And then they'll ask the question. Like, when did communism ever work, right? But because they're saying, like, I just wanted to get your perspective on that, right? And it is something that it persists in the society and it's real. But when somebody front loads that and says, like, I just wanted to, you seem to have a, or that kind of thing. That's when I'm like, okay, here's a guy who doesn't actually know anything, but knows he doesn't know anything. And so he wants to learn something today. It's the people who come in and they just say, like, when did communism ever work? And that's when you expect to see, like, the dumb, like, Stalin ate all the grain with a big giant spoon. 100 billion people died under Mao. Yeah, that's a real thing that definitely happened. Hitler was a socialist. Hitler was a socialist. Command Genius is working me into a shoot, brother. I watched a little of the documentary. I couldn't stop laughing. They called Marx a Jew. Yeah, well, he was an atheist. I mean, I think Marx, correct me if I'm wrong, Marx, I think, is culturally Jewish. But, like, who gives a shit? That's always been my position. Like, who gives a fucking shit? Imagine bringing it up. Like, who cares? Like, is this supposed to discredit his work? Like, is this an intelligent way to work? To be? Like, it's so fucking... Yeah, they said Marx's real name was Moses or some other generic Jewish name. But, like, again, who gives a shit? Like, that's the part about it. Like, I don't give a fuck at all. Like, who cares? So? Like, in what way does that affect his work? Yeah, do you guys remember American History X? Is it still prescient? Yeah, I think American History X doesn't really stand up anymore because they sent a Nazi to prison. So I think that it doesn't work anymore as a film. The Nazi Party gained traction because it still believed the capitalist system that destroyed their quality of life and abandoned them would save them, yeah? In Eastern Europe, Nazism has had a major revival since the fall of the socialism because Nazis are the most ideologically committed anti-communists, so Nazism has been encouraged by the bourgeois state as a bulwark against possible resurgence of popularity for socialism once people noticed that actually their conditions got worse, not better, without socialism. Yeah, I think that's right. Anti-communists can't make up their minds. The liberals accuse Marx of having been anti-Semitic, and the fascists say he was Jewish. Yeah. The enemy is both weak and strong. John, do you remember the Nazi lady I was talking about that I've been debating with? Do you remember that NZ lady? No, I don't, Eric. Sorry, dude. True, it happened to Russia, the rise of Nazism in the 90s and early 2000s. Yeah, I mean, if you obliterate the left, all you have left is the right, right? That's all that remains. So when you do like a McCarthyist-style purge of your society, when you do a McCarthy-style purge of the society, all you have left is Nazism. All you have left is right-wing shit. So, this to me is again, like, another reason why the society has become so stupid. Because we refuse to even contemplate any ideas that come out of the left. And the only way the left gets any traction in the society is through mass action. It's just not tenable. It's just not tenable. No, TikTok for some reason is like, invite all these guys to go live together. Well, she's been turning more and more into Marxism after being so anti-communist for 3. Good. Good. Once you penetrate the propaganda, once you penetrate through the fog, and you just get them hooked into something that's tangible and real, because that's what Marxism is all about. It's all about what is tangible and real. It's not about what's like the postmodern spiritual reality of the Order Dragon, right? It's not about any of that. It's about what is tangible and real. It's about the relationships between owners and owned people, the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, right? It's an actual analysis of the society using materialistic and historical analysis, and once people get into it and realize it and get over the all the dumb propaganda about it, like, so much of what Marx says is just patently obvious, like, just very, very clear. And it's that's what makes it so dangerous to the capitalist class. Can't have people understanding the world. The issue is that she cannot wrap her head around why Marxists are so pro-vaccine and anti-freedom convoy. I mean, I haven't... First of all, there aren't that many Marxists that exist in the first place. And I don't really see many Marxists that go too hard on, like, the pro-vaccine or the anti-freedom. Like, that seems to be a more liberal sort of a thing. Like, people who call themselves leftists but really end up just being liberals. Or maybe people who do call themselves leftists and are not liberals, but they're like... the documentary just cited a science fiction book as proof. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. All right, guys. I'm well over time. Be sure to like the stream, guys. Like, share, subscribe. Hit the bells, hit the whistles, do the stuff. If you have $1 jangling around in that pocket, be sure to donate. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.